We're going to go ahead and get started here. All right, so we'll call the town board meeting of Tuesday, April 22nd, 2025 to order at 6:01. If everybody would rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States, to the republic which stands, nation, indivisible. All right, and we're going to move forward with the swearing in of our new town board supervisor, Samuel Cole. Please step up.
I, Samuel Cole,
I, Samuel Cole,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
and the state of Minnesota,
the state of Minnesota,
and faithfully, for and on behalf of the citizens of Linwood,
and faithfully for and on behalf of the citizens of Linwood,
discharge the duties of the office of Town Board Supervisor
discharge the duties of the office of Town Board Supervisor
for the town of Linwood in the county of Anoka
for the town of Linwood in the county of Anoka
and state of Minnesota
and state of Minnesota
to the best of my judgment and ability.
to the best of my judgment and ability.
We waited an awful long time for you, Sam. Welcome to the board. All right, and then we have another swearing in. This will be to our fire department, our probationary firefighters and cadets. And Chief, are we going to have them come up in front? All right, well, welcome. It's an honor for the town board to be able to participate in a ceremony like this. I think this is the first time probably in quite a while. So I welcome you all here. And I'm going to go ahead and start with your swearing in. So if you repeat after me, it'll be I, and then you'll state your name. As a member of the Linwood Fire Department, I swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the state of Minnesota. And I will faithfully, honestly, and impartially discharge the duties of firefighter of the Linwood Fire Department. And I pledge to carry out the duties of firefighter to the best of my ability, and will honor and respect the mission, goals, purpose, and rules of Linwood Township and the Linwood Fire Department. So help me God. Well, congratulations as being our new Linwood Township firefighters. All right, number 5, roll call, please.
Supervisor Henriksen. Here. Supervisor Cole.
Here.
Supervisor Olson.
Here.
Supervisor Milliburn.
Here.
Supervisor Ludke.
Here.
Thank you. All right, some of you have probably noticed that I added a couple things onto the agenda. I've got a spot for public forum now and at the end of the meeting, just to kind of go over what this is for. Oh, sorry, hold on one second. Great. All right, so kind of the ground rules to public forum. We're gonna give this a try. If we have issues with it, board may change its mind. Public forum is to allow a person to come in. If you've got something that you want to address and make the town board aware, you'll be able to come in and address the board. We're gonna limit it to 3 minutes. We're gonna try to keep it down to where it doesn't exceed 15 minutes total. Otherwise, we'll be here for a long time. But this is an opportunity to bring something up that's not on the agenda, something that you'd like to make us aware of. And so we had quite a few people that signed up for a public forum. And I'm not sure if everybody signed up for the public forum or if they thought that they were signing into the sign-in. So if you don't want to address the board, or if you want to wait until the end, just let me know and we'll move on. Dennis Erickson, did you want to address the board? All right. Okay, perfect. No problem. All right, Ed Kramer. Just signing in. Okay. Yep. Let's see, Mike and Maria Taylor, I'm assuming you were signing in. Okay. William Marholtz.
Signing in. Maybe you just raise hands if they put themselves to speak, John.
Yeah. Let me just run through this list. Jamie Suprowitsky.
She left too.
Okay, left.
Let's see who's gonna do it.
So who would like to address the board now? All right, we just got one. Okay, why don't you come on up? You can just come up to the microphone, give your name and your address, please. You just make a line if you're okay.
I think he's number 6 on that list. Would you
All
just
right.
circle that for me so I know that he spoke?
For you guys to get those.
And I should also say, keep in mind that this is kind of a comment thing, so you won't get a response. It's just not to ask questions, it's to inform the township. If the board feels that there needs to be follow-up action, it'll be put on another agenda or be handled through a work session. All right, name and address, please.
My name is Joe Richardson. I live on Swallow Street, Andover, Minnesota. I am a member of the Anoka County Election Integrity Team. And want to take the opportunity to come to you guys today and bring your attention to some issues with the poll pad agreement that was entered into between Linwood Township and Anoka County in 2018. It's our belief, ACET's belief, that there are some issues with this agreement that need your attention prior to the next upcoming election to be resolved. Both the cities of Ramsey and Oak Grove have already canceled their agreements. So if you want to turn to slide 2 on here. The poll pad agreement was never properly approved by the Anoka County Commissioners. And we don't believe Linwood Township properly approved the agreement either, but your records from 2018 are not accessible online. So we have not been able to 100% verify that. You would be able to verify that or not. Most cities did not properly approve the agreement. There's only been so far, I think 5 out of the 21 that we have found that in there. And this has been brought to the attention of the Anoka County Commissioners close to a month ago, and we're still waiting on a response from them about that issue. And at the Ramsey City meeting in December of 2004, the Ramsey City attorney indicated to their council that the agreement should have been formally approved by the city council. Because of the 3 minutes, I won't go through everything here. So if you want to jump to slide 3 real quick. Under the agreement, Linwood Township takes on all liabilities and the insurance requirements related to these poll pads and their usage. The county and the vendor provide you with no warranty of the equipment, how well it's going to operate, is it going to function properly or anything in this. Again, at the Ramsey City meeting in December, the city attorney stated that the agreement is very one-sided in favor of the county. And at that meeting, that's the meeting where the city of Ramsey terminated their agreement, partially because of the review of the city attorney. You want to jump to slide 4? We believe at ACET that the overall network connecting the new electronic poll pads that were just purchased to the other precincts and the e-pulse system violates Minnesota statute. The Minnesota statute is on that sheet you have in front of you. Question is, who's liable for that violation during an election? Is it Linwood Township that's liable for that, or is it Anoka County? Something for you to think about there. In October of 2024, the Anoka County Elections Department sent out a memorandum threatening the election judges in the county with a felony. These election judges in Linwood Township are your city employees. The memorandum violated the Minnesota statutes, and the memorandum also claimed that the county had all authority, taking away Linwood Township's autonomy. Okay, you want to jump to slide 5? So ASA would like to provide an opportunity. We'd like to request that you would bring us back where we could have a sit down with you and open dialogue during, a workshop or something. Spend about 30 minutes, go into the details of all of these issues we've raised and a couple of others that we don't have the time to bring to you right now. And on slide 6, there's our contact information where you can reach out to us.
Perfect. Mr. Richardson, thank you very much. Appreciate
Thanks.
it.
Thank you.
All right. Nobody else for the public forum part? All right, we'll move on with the agenda. Consideration and approval of the agenda. Does anybody have any suggested changes, additions? I think what I'm gonna do is, I need to add one on here, which is going to be, it's gonna be our, weed spraying. We haven't addressed that yet this year, so let's put that under, 13.7. Sound okay? All right. Any other suggestions? All right, if there's a motion to approve,
Motion to approve the agenda.
all right, there's a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Oh, okay. Thank you. All right, so we'll move on then to get up here. All right, and now we'll move on to the consideration approval of the consent agenda. Is there any changes, suggestions for that? All right, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to accept the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Any abstentions?
One abstention.
One abstention, 4 and 1 abstention. All right, we'll move on then to number 9, presentations. We have a presentation from the School Forest. Gretchen, come on up.
Hi, good evening. Thank you, board, for letting me come and update you a little bit about some of the work we're going to do in the school forest. Just so you're aware, we do have a school forest committee, and this information has been shared with them. We have voted on spending the money that we get through fundraising with our students at Linwood. And then I have also spoke with the park board to let them know as well. But we just wanted to bring this to your attention so you know where we're going on how to take care of our forest.
Perfect.
All right, so if you've been in the school forest, you will see that there is a desperate need for cleanup. This past week or so, as a school, we always take time in the fall and spring to do some cleanup with students. But it's critical that when you have a forest, whether it's for the school or not, that you're taking care of it. So a couple reasons why it's critical for us to clean it up is we have to reduce the large amount of red maple that we have in the forest. Sometimes there's different diversity of trees that will overpower, and then we don't get the diversity of trees that we want to have in there. It's also to improve the conditions for regeneration of adding diversity of trees. So getting more conifers in there or different trees that will really allow us to not just have a lot of the red maple or oak that we have. The other big piece is we have to take care of it to reduce fires. Right now, what I'm talking with the students about is we have to beautify it. One of the things that the students love to do is this time of the year after winter, gathering some of those twigs and sticks and making piles. And it's awesome because the kids love being a part of taking care of that forest. The other piece is to improve management access. So we have to do that by clearing debris, moving the debris around, reducing it. One of the things that will be in our near future is visiting with Andy and our fire department about how we can get some of the deadfall or debris out of there safely. So there's lots of moving pieces when you think of cleaning up the forest. How do we do this work? So all work will be done outside of the high risk period for oak wilt. So obviously there's different times throughout the year where oak wilt is high, and we would do it obviously not in those times. We would also use a forestry mower or mulcher. So I have a video after this to show you kind of what a forestry mulcher or mower does. It would really treat the debris and some of the live red maple that would be up to 6 inches in diameter. You can see a picture of it in the right-hand corner. You can also see in that winter picture, that is what parts of our forest look right now like. Very messy. Like I try to tell the students, it's like having a dirty bedroom. And so we really need to clean it up. And so there's some things that we can do as a school, but there's some that we need to call people in to help us with. Large diameter debris will be handled by that company. We did look at Rammel and another company in White Bear Lake, and we got quotes from both of them and decided to go with Rammel just because the quote was lower. And also the Rammel company does an excellent job of helping us sometimes to take down some trees at no cost. So really keeping it safe for our students out there. Some large diameter dead trees that are standing may be dropped during that process, but also, ironically, I learned this when we did a tour out there. Having those dead trees are great too for other critters and animals to live in. So all of this information I did not know on my own. I have someone that I will introduce in a minute that is really the expert behind all of this and has taught me a great deal. Let's see, does it not let me go to the next slide? The next slide is the video of the forestry mower and mulcher. And it might be good for you to see a lot of concern around what equipment we'll have in there. So this kind of gives you an idea of what that looks like. Why I can't go ahead. Oh, there we go. So that just gives you kind of an idea of what that looks like. It's not a huge vehicle. It's something that can get into the forest on the paths that we have. And then I just have two more slides. Thank you, Mr. Lucky. What are the outcomes? So, Mr. Wilder from the DNR, he supplied some pictures of this work that's been done in other forests. So you get an idea of what it looks like after it's done. And it's really like cleaning up a dirty bedroom. So if you think about the snowy picture and then what it looks like, it really allows for some trees to breathe. There's some scattering that goes on. The forest understory can get a little clear and open, but that's actually really wonderful when we plant new diversity of trees so that they are able to have some of that growth. And then it also allows for further management projects. One project that I would love to get closer on the north side where we have the it's like one of my favorite places in the forest. We have a long boardwalk that walks through there. Right on the other side of that, towards the school end, is a great place to put in another classroom. And kind of it's built on a hill. So during kind of doing a unique way of almost like benches that will be in that hill so that we can kind of have a stage on the bottom. But it provides for some of that when we get those sites cleared out. So potential pitfalls, because this is something that's really important. Something that's very low risk is the mechanical damage to reserved trees. So you might be thinking, what's mechanical damage? That would be like operator or type of equipment. Just to kind of set your mind at ease, before my time, 6 or 7 years ago, pre-COVID, Rammel came in and did the Blue Trail, which goes north and south for a mile all the way through the school forest. And they did an excellent job of that work. And to little damage on our trees and in our school forest. So having them in again really kind of lets us know that they will take good care of what we have there. Low risk is just the soil rutting or the compaction. It can be susceptible to that damage, but as you can see, the size and weight of the equipment will not be excessive. Like I think sometimes people think we're going to get big bulldozers in there. A slight risk is just the introduction of invasive species that can get in there, and that can get in on dirty equipment. So one way that we can mitigate that is just talking to Rammel about cleaning their equipment before they come in so they aren't bringing those species in. There is a moderate risk, which actually this is so interesting because when I read this, I was like, that would be great. There could be a flush of raspberry or a blueberry brush, but that's not ideal. It's also not common, and it's more of a nuisance to deal with. And then the moderate to high risk is really about public concern and complaints. When Mr. Wilder and I started talking about this, he was like, you really need to prepare yourself because we have a lot of community visitors that are in that forest taking walks, walking their dog, doing a nature walk. And it's really important that we communicate to them about the purpose of the work we're doing. Because as you can imagine, anybody that's walking in, not being aware and seeing a vehicle or people in there getting rid of trees would be alarming. So that would be another big piece of that is just making sure that we're getting the word out through the township, through the school, and making sure that we're getting out the purpose and the importance of doing this. And there will likely be comments even after all of that. And this group may be the one that fields many of those. So partnering with you guys to help with that as well. So I have the honor of calling Mr. Jeff Wilder up. He is our DNR representative. He's not presenting today, but if there are questions from the board, it would be really great to just have his support. He's really taught me everything I know about the forest along with Jen Brado. And so there may be questions that you might have that might be a little bit out of my realm of understanding. So I thought I would just bring him in case you had questions about the project. We would like to do this in late fall. Yes, because again, we have to stay out of that oak wilt and make sure that we're protecting that part of our forest as well.
Perfect.
He's really a genius. I just have to tell you.
One important addition.
What, speaking,
we can maybe consider this kind of a pilot because we have two, I guess, project areas between 2 and 3 acres each. So it's not going to be the entire forest. It's going to be just treating those couple of spots just to see how this goes and how it looks. So.
And if you've been out to the forest, especially, I like to call it Fern Gully. So it's where the blue trail and the yellow trail meet. If you head from that all the way to the beautiful boardwalk on the north side, the deadfall and the amount of cleanup that we have is pretty extensive. So it is really looking at a 3 to 5, 5 to 10 year plan because it is going to cost money to do it. But again, if you think back to the importance of why we need to do it, if we don't start to take some of the action of taking care of our forest, it will get above us and we could have some potential awful things happening in there. So slow to go fast, right? So that's really what we need to do.
Great. Super. I think it's awesome.
Gretchen did a great job. So questions?
well, I was just wondering, so is there, it's been a few years since I've been to the school forest. Is there a lot of buckthorn in there? Will that machine take care of it?
Listen, I'm just going to tell you that for the first like 4.5 years, I was like, I go to these school forest summits and they're like, we have buckthorn, we have buckthorn. And I was like, we don't have buckthorn up in Linwood. And then this fall, well, this wonderful man here was like, oh, yikes, what's that? That's buckthorn. And I was like, no, my ears. So we do have some
Okay.
buckthorn kind of right on that Fern Gully, like
Okay.
blue yellow trail meet. So we are definitely going to have to do some work with that.
Will you be going over it with that machine?
It's not in the plan now, but theoretically it's adjacent
Yeah.
to one. So
Okay.
we'll be talking about that as well.
There was a hand raised in the back for a question.
Yeah,
Can you come?
Yep. you got to come up to the microphone, please. Thank you. And then your name and street address.
My name's Diane Sells, 6020 Cranberry Drive, Linwood Township. So I have been on the school forest committee since it started in 1996. And I have a couple questions about, first of all, before I say, make comments, is that we were told in our committee that it would be like a reimbursement of some of the money that we have to initially put forth. And so that I didn't hear that addressed. There is, but it's more towards the town board. And I have to agree that this is an issue. It needs to be done, but we don't have finances to make this happen in 5 to 10 years because, and that was another thing, it was going to cost $8,000 initially. So first, I guess, answer the question, is this going to be something that we would get reimbursed partially for this project?
The answer to that is potentially. It's been kind of a long road getting to this point. So once we know that we can move ahead with the project, we do have a cost share program in the Division of Forestry that we've used before on the Blue Trail. So once we can start planning the project, then we can start seeing where we can draw funds from to help with portions of the cost.
Sure, that makes sense.
Okay, another thing is that our school forest, we initially started in 96. It's 170 acres then. We acquired 40 more acres in 2011. And I have the agreements for the school forest and the Linwood Township together. one's the amended and one's the non-amended.
This is the joint powers agreement. Yeah. This is the joint powers agreement you're referring to?
That was the joint powers of agreement to begin the school forest. And I just wanted to bring it to attention on page 2 that, let me get my page 2 out here. It says, right in the middle, whereas the development of the property as a school forest would enable Linwood Elementary School to apply for grants and scholarships to maintain and enhance the property. And whereas the town of Linwood and Linwood Elementary Independent School District find the best way to establish a school forest on the property is through the continued ownership of the property by the town of Linwood, which it's owned, while creating through this agreement, this means by which Linwood Elementary School may maintain the educational programs and facilities related to the school forest established on the property. And then further down, it says that now therefore it is hereby agreed by the town of Linwood and Linwood Elementary School that a common usage of the property is established for the purpose of establishing and maintaining the Linwood Community Park and School forest on the property. Thank you. And it's agreed that the fee ownership of the property shall remain in the town of Linwood and that the maintenance and control of the pupil instruction management programs related shall be under the exclusive jurisdiction and control of Linwood Elementary School. But this next line says, it is further agreed that responsibility for improvement and maintenance of the facilities and the property shall be borne by the town of Linwood. Linwood Elementary School may make additional improvements and may provide for maintenance of improvements as the parties may mutually agree.
Yeah.
So I wanted to see, does that mean that Linwood, the town of Linwood, is responsible for helping to maintain the forest?
Yeah, according to the new JPA. Yeah, we just got that here a couple months ago, the updated one. So we're well aware of how it states it in there, but the school forest will have to come up with their project. And if they're looking for funding, then they can come before the board.
Well, the thing is, that I was just asking if perhaps you can delay your decision on passing this for right now, because we do have money that we have made through fundraisers over the years. But our main fundraiser now is Metro Dining Cards.
Mm.
And right now we have 8,000 set aside in our savings. We have 2,200 set aside in our checking. And we pay DNR naturalists to come out and take the kids out into school forest every year. And that's about $2,000.
Yeah.
So that's gonna leave us, if we pay the $8,000 and we don't know when we're gonna get reimbursed or if we're gonna get reimbursed, that's gonna wipe that out. And then we won't have, it just sets everything else
Yeah.
aside,
So let me
hoping
make-
that it will have money when we need it, because
Yeah.
we do a color run. I mean, there's so many.
Let me stop you there for a second,
Okay.
not to be rude.
Sorry.
But you're just doing the presentation to let us know what's coming down the pike, right? And so you're not coming asking for, you're not proposing any funding at this point, is that correct?
No, I think one thing that I think I'm proud of is anything that we get for that school forest, whether it's snowshoes, hammocks, any of that, I do grants for that. Because I know that our budget is limited. However, with the pushback agenda, I think we'll be fine. So we aren't so worried about that piece. But I do think as a school forest committee, we have talked about we maybe need to do different fundraising because to do this work, we will have to get more money than we currently are.
Sure.
I'm also well aware of the township and the budget that you have as well. So we have never really gotten to a point where we've come to ask for money. We've met with the park board. They've been wonderful and we've done more partnering with them. So there could be growth for that, but I wouldn't say that the forest is hurting. Like there's resources that I can get my hands on. It's just a big project like this. But again, working with the DNR to figure out how can we share some of that fund.
Sure, okay. If it's a real quick here. Yeah,
So just thinking in terms of cost share from DNR Forestry, before any work gets done, you would know what the cost share amount is gonna be. So you would not be in a situation where the work's done, the bill's due, and then you're wondering how
sure,
much we're gonna kick in. All those agreements would be set before the work is done.
perfect. Perfect.
Okay,
One
and that
more
would
quick
be in
question.
writing, right? Okay. The other thing I thought maybe we should, and I've just been able to touch on this and find out a little bit more, but those boardwalks, way back, I think 2010, 11, they put them in. It was through, might have been called Sentence to Serve. Yes.
Okay.
And it's where nonviolent prisoners were brought in and they were very well supervised and it actually put in all the work. And they do this kind of thing. I don't think Sentences Served works in this, but I've been looking into it. Another place that's very similar is called Institution Community Work Crew. And I'm checking with him because they actually come to places like parks, do clearing, do trail work. Well, and they're putting in community service so they can
Sure.
get a lighter, get off and out earlier. And they're also learning skills. So it not only helps the community, but it also would help with this because this is a huge project. If you think 210 acres, we're only doing 6 acres, that's going to take the majority of the money that we have in our savings.
Yeah. I
And
think
we
it's a
won't
great
be able to
suggestion.
build that up in 5 or 10 years to do another just 5 or 6 acres.
Yep.
So we do have to.
So who was that coordinated through? Was it the school force that worked with Sentence to Serve people to get that stuff done? Sorry.
I've talked
Gene
to.
Bayland, who was the former principal, he worked with that group to have them come in and do that work.
Okay.
So, but they weren't doing, I think the work we're talking about is a much bigger project than maybe just gathering some parent volunteers and.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out with the questions that are being asked, how this board is involved in that and where we're not. So I just want to make sure that.
Because you're gonna have to approve this project eventually for it to go through. So maybe we need to look at a couple other things. Look
Okay.
at our budget and make sure everything's gonna be on the up,
Yeah.
correct. So we don't have to go, oh my gosh, we don't have money to pay this.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I
we're
would-
only doing a little section and this is a big forest, so.
Well,
And
I
it-
think it's a great opportunity for the school forest to, in their committee meetings, bring that forth. So I thank you all
Yes.
for everything. There's a lot of information you brought forth and put that together. So thank you, Gretchen, Jeff, Diane.
I have a few questions if that's
Yeah.
okay. First, Bob, is this what you were talking about a few weeks ago? You mentioned something about the health of the school forest? Or is that?
It could have been.
Okay.
It could have been.
Either way, I have a few questions for the, what's your name, DNR, Jeff? So we're talking about $8,000 to do like six acres of the entire forest?
It would probably end up being 5.
5 acres. And so, I mean, what's gonna be the situation if we spend $8,000 to do this and then if we can't continue? Is it basically kind of get is there like a timeline where if we don't continue after a certain point, that'll kind of get wiped out?
The spots that are worked on will get wiped out or?
Yeah, like will the rest of the forest kind of just come back and,
Well, it will. Yeah, it is intended to set up natural response with hardwood regeneration. And then it's to set the opportunity for the kids to go out and plant probably conifers to mix in and do some actual project work on the tending, the release, if you will, of those other trees. So this treatment would be beneficial to those 5 acres. There's a lot more potential to do this kind of work to send the forest on a different trajectory. But I think there's still value in doing a portion of the forest, even if you don't get to the rest of the forest.
okay,
Because it's on a trajectory now to become pretty much all red maple.
okay. Would it be something that might be worthwhile looking at it as what would it take to do, what would the timeline be? What would the project look like to do the entire school forest over decades?
That would be worth looking at.
Okay,
It's kind of hard to say what the budget would be for that. You know, I suppose you
Yeah.
could just project it, you know, what it costs to 5 acres over the all the upland forest.
I
You know,
guess
and
to me
and-
personally, it seems a little weird to be talking about just 5 acres of a huge forest.
Yeah, understood, but we were kind of working with, you know, our cost share can only go so far. Available budgets can only go so far, so we had to kind of keep it real
Mhm.
as an initial goal. That's
Sure.
why I kind of referred to it as a project or a pilot project, just to see how this goes. And
But you're saying even if we just did that 5 acres and stopped there, there'd still be value with that?
yeah, I think so. And if you introduce, you mix in conifers, you get some different hardwoods starting to regenerate other than red maple that you can then tend and encourage to get more diverse species started.
Mhm.
You'll go a different route than just all red maple.
Okay, and then last question, on the risks. You mentioned, that we're doing this at a certain time of the year to avoid the oak wilt. Doing it at a certain time of the year, does that eliminate the risk or is that still a risk at some level?
It does eliminate the risk because when you're outside of the season where the beetles are flying that are picking up spores off of infected trees, if you're doing it during fall, winter, the damage that you might do to standing trees or whatever, you bump into them, you nick them, those wounds are sealed off and dried before the next season of when the beetles are flying around. So you're not going to have the new introduction of an infection.
So no risk if you do it at the right time?
Yeah, it's called a safe period, you know, if you were ranking the risk periods.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the board?
I just have one more comment to make that right now our only fundraiser is Metro Dining Cards. And we usually bring about 20, I think we made $2,300 close to that this year. And our DNR naturalists cost 2,000 plus we had other events. So if we use the 8,000 for this small project, we don't have another fundraiser that's going to replenish money for anything
No, I
else.
understand that. Yep.
Okay.
No, I would suggest, yeah, with being on the school forest committee, bring it all together, your concerns, and come in with one comprehensive proposal. So, any other questions for Jeff or Gretchen? Nope.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the information. All right. So we're gonna move on to number 10, which is the Bunny Hop Extravaganza. Who is speaking to this?
That would be me. I just wanted to give Sarah kind of a shout out because she had a very successful event. There was 392 people through here. And she had between 25 and 30 volunteers, which is the most volunteers she's ever had for one of her things. And I just wanted everybody to know how hard she works and how creative she is with some of these things that she does with the seniors and with the community. And I just think that's a really great thing that she did this weekend.
She did an excellent job.
So
Thank you, Billy. Thank you for bringing that up. Thank you, Sarah.
Very fun day.
All right, planning and zoning. First one is going to be accessory building discussion. It was tabled from March 25th. Did anybody want to speak to that? P and Z, Andy, anybody?
So this was coming back from, just pulling up to our page here. So we pushed this to P and Z, and then in your packets, you have the summary of what came out of the P and Z meeting last week. They opted not to review it. So I don't know, kind of some of the confusion, some of that back and forth. Susan kind of speak to some of it with her summary and go from there. So just one second, I'll fix this. The question keeps coming up with the process for reviewing something. So people have concerns, we bring them forth, and then they come forth and P and Z. So maybe it's a chance to speak to the history of the ordinance or what or why it was opted not to be reviewed in terms of where we got to where we're at.
Mr. Chairman and board members, Joseph Dolphy, Planning and Zoning Chairman. We did review it with one concerned party. Our ordinance we've had in place for quite some time. I did ask Susan if they've had many requests for oversize or other problems. She said there's been little or none other than this one that's been addressed it several times over the last year. The planning commission recommended that being it's a minor thing, or not a real common thing, to have the person go through a variance process rather than having us revamp our ordinances. That's kind of was the decision at planning and zoning last week. So if it was a common problem, and I know over the years, if there's a lot of variances being granted, then it's time to change the ordinance. But to change the ordinance at the request of one person that I know of, maybe other people signed a petition. I heard about that. I haven't seen it, but still, unless there's a broad need for oversized or bigger buildings, what our code currently allows it, we decided to recommend leaving it as it is.
Okay.
The biggest concern was 14-foot sidewalls versus 16-foot. And when we did establish this years ago, whatever, I don't know, been, accessory buildings have been tossed around quite a bit, but the size of the buildings, you wouldn't want a super tall building sitting alongside your $500,000 home. And that was kind of the reason that we left it. We had 14-foot maximum, and the setbacks are consistent with what we have for other accessory buildings. So that was a recommendation from planning and zoning back to the town board.
Okay. It sounded like this particular instance, there was like 4 different issues with.
It was more than just building height.
It wasn't
There was
just a
other things,
sidewall
yes.
height. It wasn't just a wetlands. There was 4 things that, as I understand, were the issues.
Well, initially it was, and I think towards the end it was more to do with the building height, but to change our ordinances to accommodate, I guess, individual problem. Maybe there's more to it than that, but talking to the staff, that's what we came up with. It isn't a big issue right now. So,
Okay.
okay,
All right.
thank you.
Thank you. Any questions on that from the board?
I know that when we built our pole barn, we wanted to go with a 16-foot wall. It would have been lower than the highest peak of our roof. We got a variance for a larger pole barn and everything was a go. But then the day that we came to the meeting, we were told that we couldn't do the 16-foot wall. And if we would have gone for another variance, we would have had to wait 2-3 months to build our pole barn. When I was out door knocking, I actually met several people that had issues with their pole building. I don't know if they knew about a variance or not. That I'm not sure about. So I think there is some concern for our residents for this.
for the wall height.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
And if you've got a motor home, all that money invested, you want to protect it.
Sure.
I have
Yeah.
a quick question about variances.
You can hold on 1 second.
I
Sandy.
can just speak to that for when I was doing
Sure.
planning and zoning. People would ask about it. We would say that's against the ordinance and they didn't want to go through a variance, so they would just drop it. So I would agree that there's people that would have liked it, but they weren't. And to get a variance, you have to prove you have a hardship, practical difficulty. You have to prove that, and it cannot be financial. It can't be because I don't want to spend the money on scissor trusses or box trusses. So I'm not opposed to taller buildings. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying, as far as the people coming in, there wasn't applications for variances. They would ask the question, we'd say, this is the guidelines, this is the rules. If you want to apply for a variance, but you'll probably be turned down because you don't have any kind of a difficulty other than you don't want to do engineered trusses because it will cost you more, and cost cannot be a factor in a variance.
Sure. Thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah, come on up. Yeah. Name and address, please.
Dan Lometti, 20726 Viking Boulevard, Northeast. This 16-foot sidewalls isn't long, was done recently within the last 10 years. To say this was done years ago is not true, because I got the last 16-foot sidewalls. And they went and made and changed the rules after that. And I'd like to see 3 reasons why people can't have them. Your roof line can be lower with 16-foot sidewalls versus a 14-foot. So for them to sit here and deny people of this, all they want to do is put their RV in their pole barn. To me, it's ridiculous.
Okay. Thank you.
That was kind of my question too. And I think when I was looking at it, I can't remember the exact year, but I think it looked like the last time that this was updated, they decreased they made it more restrictive. And so I was curious, like, well, why was that decision made? I don't know if Joe could speak to that, or if. But you didn't mention when you decreased it, why that might have been.
Mr. Chairman and board members, I can't speak to exactly why and when it was done. It was within the last 10 years, maybe. I don't, our 14-foot sidewalls have been around for, I think, more than 10 years. The 16-foot, again, that may have changed depending on who the building inspector was or what was allowed. Our ordinances, I've been involved with ordinance changes for quite a few years on amendments and updates and stuff. And I don't, maybe somebody got a 16-foot building. I don't know if that was by our code or not. I got code books at home. We'll go back into the 80s, so I could look it up if I wanted to. But the reasons of why we kept it was, like I said, bigger buildings than that, and with our 2.5 acre lots, you know, this guy is, somebody's got bigger acreage. But this one particular incident, he had other factors that he wanted addressed too. So it was more than just building height. And for us to, I guess, nitpick at the ordinance, if you want to change the ordinance, again, the way I was told years ago, if there's many variances being granted, then it's time to change the ordinance. But we haven't been granting variances on roof heights. But just in the last year, a person came to the board looking for higher sidewalls. They turned them down. He had scissors trusses made, and he's got a 14-foot door and 14-foot sidewalls, and he's happy with it. So it can be done regardless of the sidewall height. So that's kind of where we were at. And we've brought this to other people that have built buildings, and they've gone to the engineered trusses and made it happen and stay within the 14-foot guidelines that the township has. Now, if the board wants to override with planning and zoning, you can ask us to go and review the ordinance, change it. But that was the rationale that planning and zoning had a week ago and a month ago when it came to us. And we denied it a month ago, and we again went through it again in the planning commission. I think it was unanimous. It voted to leave it the way it is. And again, with the zoning administrator, if she's getting more and more requests for something like that, then maybe. But at this point, this has been the only one I know of in the last year that, well, request, but nobody pursued it as far as asking for the 16-foot sidewalk.
We already have an ordinance that limits the height of the accessory
The
building to not
overall
exceed.
peak, yeah.
Yeah,
But then that can change depending on the grade. If you're building down in a hollow, the roof line is gonna be lower, even though it's a taller building. So, and that
sure.
has been taken into consideration depending on the topography of the land. But that's usually the zoning administrator or the building inspector, somebody reviews them plans before that's approved.
Okay.
But again, that's an ordinance that has to be looked at by the staff, not planning and zoning, because we can't go out and look at every situation to see where the grade's gonna be.
Sure.
So,
And you brought up I just want to clarify, because you brought up a point too, is when I went back and I reviewed what the board sent to P and Z, it was to look at the request that was before us, which included all of these other things. It wasn't, as I understood the motion, it wasn't to have you look at sidewall height. It was the whole thing. And I think that's why you guys acted on it the way you did.
I thought it was to do with the accessory building ordinance.
Right.
That's-
Yeah, I was more broad. It wasn't
Yeah.
specific to sidewall height. So if sidewall height is an issue that people have, that is a different request that this board should send to planning and zoning to look at versus that whole thing like we did last time. If that makes sense.
Right, well, and the applicant, the person that was at the board meeting or planning commission last week, he said if he had to go through the variance process, he would. But if the township has to change its ordinance in order to accommodate a minor problem, in I guess, the planning commission's opinion, the township's gonna bear the cost of doing it all. With
Yeah.
everything, and if it's only for small incidents, why should the township bear that cost for a few people, one or few?
I think we almost
Some
have
of
to
the
separate
rationale
them.
That's been, this has been at the office here since last summer, this request, and they've told them that
Yeah.
there's ways to go about it, but
But I think we have to kind of separate the two because I have talked to that resident and I believe that we're all in agreement to do the variance process. So I don't think that's going to be the issue. So I think that's one thing. The other thing is the push that I've had from a lot of residents that have contacted me is specifically about the sidewall height of that's been the biggest thing that's been brought to me. It has nothing to do with the other request. It's separate, but that's why I said if this board is hearing that and this board wants planning and zoning to look specifically at that one element of sidewall height, that's when the board needs to be more specific about what we're gonna ask P and Z to look at. Does that make sense, Joe?
it would make it simpler to address, knowing that we're not
Yeah.
trying to modify things just for one person's situation because of the lay of the land.
Yeah, because I don't,
Again, variances, and I don't know, I'm sure Susan has said it, most zoning administrators in the past have said it. You can apply for a variance, there's no guarantee you're gonna get it.
Yeah.
And you gotta tell them right up front that depending on what your specifics are. But that was part of the process with the variance. The township would be able to review the site plan and see what all the details are, rather than just saying rubber stamp 16-foot buildings and 'cause
Yep.
there was more than just a building height on this one request.
Yeah.
But if it's up for variance, it'll get reviewed. Neighboring people will be notified of it. So in case they are gonna be offended or have a concern about the style or height or whatever building, it can be addressed. Rather than the
Yes.
township, township's here to make rules, but not to bend them too bad. So,
right.
okay.
Thank you, Joe. I appreciate that. Did you want to come up?
Justin Williams, 9260 236th Avenue Northeast. So you did vote it to go back to P and Z at a 4-0 vote, and nothing really came out of that. I think that we all knew what was going on here. We were looking at the 16-foot height walls. And additionally, the cumulative square footage of allowable for over 6 acres. So those are the two things that I'm actually concerned about. But the township is supposed to act on behalf of the residents. And we keep saying that this is one person's request. Well, I've heard planning and zoning say a couple times now that there's been variances denied. So there's more than one person asking for this. There's somebody on the board right now that is interested and applied for the variance themselves. So to continue to issue variances, allowing people to break the ordinance is just because it might cost the board some money to do this and time, doesn't mean that it's not to the benefit of people of the 70+ votes that one of the residents got.
Agreed. Thank you. Thank you.
How's it going? Dennis Erickson, 6815 231st Lane. So I put up a 30 by 40 in 1994. The only thing that was on that I had to abide by was you were not allowed to exceed the peak of the main dwelling. So if I bring in fill and put that thing up 20 feet, I could have had 16-foot walls. And I think to have somebody, and I had to apply for a variance because I was 5 foot off the setback back then, and I had to go get a signature and pay the money and everything, which I don't think is right. I mean, I think when someone requests that, I think you got two ordinances that are outweighing each other. You got a 16-foot wall, but yet you can't clear, your main dwelling. You can't exceed that peak of your main dwelling. So they're contradicting each other. And I think the individual case, when somebody comes in with 16-foot walls, then it needs to be looked at. Okay, is he exceeding, whether it's a site plan like Joe said or whatever, that planning and zoning would look at to see the heights and everything that are listed on there. So I think that's where the confusion's coming in with all of this. And versus having somebody get a variance and pay you guys, I think it needs to be looked at closer by planning and zoning, first of all. And maybe two of their members or whatever it takes to go out and take a look at it to see if it's in, the neighbors from here to that doorway and you're putting up 16-foot walls. Well, it's like putting up a fence, put up a 16-foot fence if you want. But I think the two ordinances are contradicting each other here. And that's what all the confusion is being caused of. Because I don't see anybody. Yeah, you got one that says exceed height. Well, if the guy's got an elevation down lower, he put in 24-foot walls.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So, okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right. What does the board think here?
Well, being that I did see some houses where they weren't able to get the variance, so their motorhome was out in the yard. We do, I think, and our residents who we work for, this is something they want. I would like it to be looked at.
My big question is, it sounds like at some point this was allowed and then it was restricted back. I'm really curious, like, we're not gonna move it up because of some people asking, well, why was it restricted at one point? Was it because there was a lot of people complaining about too big of pole barns, or I'm curious what's going on there, why that was restricted and why we can't move it back.
Yeah. Sandy, did you want to, I know you've got a little information here, if you don't mind sharing.
That it got changed on the height was basically our building inspector at the time said, I don't even know if it was 16, but he said, we can limit it to 14 as the discussion was going back and forth. Should it be 16 or 14? And he said, there's no reason it needs to be taller than 14 because again, they can do the engineered trusses. And there was some talk at the same time that maybe we'd have like a panel review it. The attorney said we didn't have a good description for a panel review. Take all of that out, bring it back. And the board at that time said, we're tired of dealing with this accessory building thing. You're not bringing it back. And that's where it ended. So it's not like the planning and zoning was dead set that it had to be 14. It's just it all kind of spiraled and then it went to 14 with Mike's suggestion that anybody could make it work with 14 and you can get your motorhomes in if you do the engineered trusses. And that's really what happened with it. This wasn't like, oh, we have to decrease it for major issues. It wasn't anything like that. It kind of slipped in because he said, hey, that'll work. Planning and zoning said, okay, then we'll go with 14. And then the board passed it.
Good, thank you. Thank you. Okay, one more thing, Justin.
Real quick, it's just a reminder, if you do want to put a motorhome in here with 14-foot sidewalls, you are limited to the gable ends of that building where the peak is. So you're limited to where that motorhome or RV can go in. So it restricts how you can build it, where you can build it, where your driveway is. And it costs extra money. I realize that that's not a practical difficulty, but the fact is it costs extra money.
All right, thank you. Any thoughts?
Yeah, to me, the
Motion.
sidewall and then the cumulative square feet. You know, being capped at that, depending on acreage that somebody has. And the fact that everything is cut off at 4 acres for both zoning districts. To me, that's where the review has to be and be. Why was it, if that was the case, why it was brought down, just because people were tired of it? I don't know why it would have got changed anyways then.
Yeah.
The easiest thing would be to leave it alone.
On the person's request, again, I think that's done. I think that'll be a variance process, so that's taken care of. I personally would like to be more definitive with P and Z and ask P and Z to look at the wall height, moving that from 14 to 16 feet and relook at the total square footage allowed based on the acreage. Does that sound kind of what you were thinking, Andy?
Yeah, the cumulative, and there's a. Susan's got more of the specifics on the one discrepancy. In order to be specific on that.
Yes, so we do say it's the cumulative of 3,600 square feet. And then in section 30-349 in RA, let me just find where I had that pulled up here, bear with me just a moment. Permitted uses in RA number 4, sorry, that's not number 4. I had it set up here. Oh, there we go. It says you can have up to 3 accessory buildings on a parcel 6 acres or larger. So I think that was something when I found that I was a little confused. If you'd want to have 3 1,200 square foot, are we still going to keep it at the 3,600 square feet? That was just my question. I think I had processing it just to kind of get some clarification, I think, for myself enforcing the code, and I think for residents reading the code. Maybe just add even some more verbiage to that or to clarify that more specifically.
Yeah, makes sense. So do you have a motion or you want me to make a motion? Send this to P and Z?
Well, it's challenging because then it doesn't get specific if something ain't. And this is where I spoke to last year too, being able to make sure we're reviewing the ordinances for these types of things, that if it doesn't make sense when reading, doesn't make sense how we're living. If it's to look at sidewall, but then tie in the cumulative square footage. Are those separate sections themselves in terms of on the? I'm just gonna go back to the last motion because that had the code section in it.
The one part for the permitted accessory uses where it just says up to 3 accessory buildings on a parcel 6 acres or larger for RA, that's 30-349. And the accessory building itself section would be Division 3, 3665 through 3679.
That's what the motion was last time, the Division 3, that whole section, because even if you say this, that could affect another
Right.
section somewhere, and then it'd be like, we're not looking at that. To me, accessory structures is accessory structures. These are the specifics we're trying to address. Stay within that ordinance, and it might point to something else that's gonna get you out of that section, but the intent, and I think that's what, as we've talked, Susan and I, sometimes we miss the intent or the code commentary in terms of how we got somewhere. This code was changed 3 years and then 3 years later, and it's been 3 years now. So when you look at the bottom of 2018, 2021.
This particular.
That section, yeah, so that particular section was 13 and 18.
That particular portion.
Yes.
Somewhere even 2020.
So things get moved around.
Yeah.
I just got Kevin Willis, 9210 234th Lane. I think you guys all know me. It's section 3672, Article 4, which states the maximum cumulative square footage may not exceed 3,600 square foot on any parcel in the zoning district. My proposal to date has been the maximum, get rid of the word cumulative. It should be the maximum square footage may not exceed 3,600 square feet per accessory structure on any parcel in zoning district per section 3672 1 and 2, which that section, Article 2 for 672 is the one that's specifying the 6 acres or more can have 3 structures. That's the clarification. So
All right.
sidewall height and the cumulative per structure versus cumulative is honestly, that's all I think you guys need to look at.
All right, thank you. Where do y'all want to go from here?
I would like the P and Z to look at it and, I mean, I don't think it should have been lowered back in the day. I think we should look at it, even if it does cost money. I know that our residents, I mean, he had 60 some signatures. He could probably get more. So there is definitely interest from our residents that this is something that they want.
I'm also not really hearing from anybody on the other side. I'm not hearing from anybody that, and I'd love to hear from somebody if they feel like it shouldn't be raised, but it really seems one-sided in terms of what the residents are saying.
Ryan Langlois, 6360 232nd Avenue. Sounds like if you guys gone away from just the sidewall, addressing the sidewall. Joe pointed out, we don't want to do a full rewrite of the ordinance. Some of that stuff can be done with variance as far as square footage. I think you guys should keep the focus narrow, go for the height, call it a day. Let the committee rewrite that, only that portion, because that's the portion that most people are in support of, myself included. All these other changes, I'm not entirely supportive of. And I don't know that there'll be a lot of support for those additional changes if they're allowed to go through.
The changes of the square footage?
Yes.
Okay.
So I think that's where the concern is as well, because it's easy to lay it out if we kept in the same chart that's in the ordinance right now. It just stops at 4 acres or larger. So when you have that 30-acre parcel, you're limited to the same square footage as somebody with 4 acres. So I believe the square footage has to be addressed as well, and that's as simple as, I mean, it's a chart. You just add more lines to the chart.
Because if they were sold to help with their taxes and they have to start farming, they may have equipment and more equipment than that they would want to put into the building to.
I found my motion.
I can tell you on the square footage, it's not as easy as it sounds, and this is why. I know of a parcel in the township that is 29 acres. You'd think, oh, he can have 3,600 square foot buildings. He has less than 1 acre of high ground. And so he then will get 3,600 square foot because it meets our ordinance. And so it has to be looked at if you're going to increase it. And I agree that if I had 40 acres and wanted to farm and I could only have 3,600 square feet between all my buildings, I think that's ludicrous. However, it needs to be looked at probably parcel by parcel because of the high ground or where it's going to be up against your neighbor's property, shadowing it because you've got these huge buildings there. Again, I think it needs to get looked at, but it's not as simple as you say, like just do the chart. It's going to have to be some language in there to say, but on this parcel or a committee of people, that's what was proposed the last time, a committee of people, someone from the building department, someone from the planning department, someone from planning and zoning, like the planning and zoning administrator, and someone would look at the plan and say, because of the amount of low ground on yours, you will be limited to this much. Or, so I think you can't just say, we want it bigger. I agree it should be bigger, but not on every single case. So it's not as simple as it sounds.
How
Correct, and
tricky
that
is
was-
it?
So, hold up. We have zoning administrator who can speak to that because there's conditions around that.
Actually, I was hearing the agricultural part. I do want to clarify for people that are listening, that are at home, people that are here. If your property is zoned agricultural by your county assessor, not our map, and the agricultural building has 3 particular things to meet per a Minnesota statute, you could have, truthfully, as long as you can meet side setbacks, you're exempt from size restrictions and total number of buildings. But you have to follow those particular things in order to do that. Just saying you're going to have a farm, you have to have it zoned that way at the county assessor level. And you have to then also, that building has to meet certain requirements as far as storing implement, hay, feed, agricultural items. And then also the building official then has to sign off on it that you do not need a building permit. And then it's a simple site plan. So I just wanted to clarify that for everybody listening, that just simply, if you want to have a farm, it's not that easy to say I can have 10 buildings now. So just want to clarify that for everybody.
Thank you, Susan.
Listen.
Supervisor Cole.
I have a question about variances, and apologies if this is ignorant, but it seems like I'm hearing like 2 different things. On one hand, it's like a variance is like, oh, you know, if you want a little bit more, just get a variance. It's fine as long as your neighbors are fine with it. On the other hand, I'm kind of hearing, well, there's actually some pretty specific legal language about what qualifies for a variance. So is this a situation where it's kind of like, if your neighbors are fine with it, you can go a little beyond, or is it more restrictive?
So what I tell everybody that inquires about a variance is statutorily, and I actually included it in the meeting packets, and for anybody that wants to look this up themselves, they're more than welcome to. It's Minnesota State Statute number 462.357 subdivision 6. Definition for a variance, there has to be certain hardships that are also practical difficulties. Those user words kind of in connection with each other, that there's a plight for the landowner is due to circumstances unique to the property, not created by the landowner, and the variance if granted will not alter the essential character of the locality. So when people come and ask me about a variance, I statutorily quote that, but I say you also, as a resident, have that option to go onto our website, print out the application, pay your application fee, pay the escrow, and we review it. People that also come for a pre-application meeting, which is suggested on our application packet, because I will sit down with you, it's free, cost you nothing. And I will say, okay, well, you know, you just want 2 feet because you're a little bit closer to the wetland and so you don't encroach on your septic system. Likely, I probably would recommend approval. But if your building, simply because you where you want to put it, is going to encroach on an Anoka County easement, wetlands, flood zone, I'm going to probably be honest and say, I'm not going to recommend approval. You can still apply because planning and zoning can take my approval and throw it out the window. They can do what they want. And then it comes to town board for final decision. So ultimately, my recommendation doesn't really mean much, but I'm really truthfully honest with people and say, you know, I'm not going to I won't recommend approval. We can go through the process. We can go through the public hearing. Comes down to the 7 people on P and Z. The recommendation go to town board, and town board can also not uphold their decision as well. So it's a 3-step process, but everybody has that option to apply.
So it sounds like then, like, it doesn't seem valid to me to say, okay, well, it's okay if this is a little bit more on the restrictive side because you can always just apply for a variance. It doesn't seem like that's really what the purpose of a variance is for. It's for like when you have kind of a specific hardship thing going on.
Yes, so I've only been with the township since October of 23. So when I was asked at planning and zoning how many variances we've granted for accessory buildings since I've been here, my answer was 0 because there haven't been any. There was one very shortly before, but I wasn't involved in it. The 2 that have been granted was for a parcel, East Martin Lake Drive, small parcel, had to have a new septic system. There was no viable option as opposed to encroach on the well, which they had to go through the state of Minnesota to get a well variance. That was completely not my realm. And then also to encroach on the front yard setback. But again, in the township, you have to have a septic system. So that was that made sense to recommend approval, and planning and zoning and the board also approved that. The other one was for a uniquely shaped lot that the homeowner had buildable land, has every right to build the home that they want. You know, everybody can build on their parcel. It was buildable. And it was just simply encroaching about 10 feet on the rear setback, and that rear parcel was unbuildable. It was 6,000 square feet. So that also made sense. So those are the two that have happened since I've been here. Again, plights that were not financial, or it was out of their control, you know, because of the size of the parcel.
So if a bunch of residents are saying, you know, this ordinance is too restrictive, from what I'm hearing, it sounds like variances aren't really the solution to that.
I think it can still be a case by case basis. I went through probably the last 5-8 years of our indexes and looking at different variances. And there was a time there was actually quite a few variances that were being granted for accessory buildings. And that's why I think things were revised, because when you're granting too many variances, it means that maybe something should be addressed or looked at further. Because variances should not be handed out, you know, like a golden ticket, truthfully. I hope that answers your question.
Somebody had mentioned an example of you could have 40 acres, but you might only have 4 acres that are buildable. But it says right in the ordinance, buildable area limitation. So it's based on buildable area, not the parcel size, right?
So that's why listing acreage wouldn't open someone to go build all Clover. They still have to have other setbacks within the zoning.
Right.
Within the district they're at, it has to be buildable. So having 40 acres on this list and a max size doesn't guarantee you that max size.
Right.
It just opens up the criteria within the accessory building side, but you still have to meet the zoning requirements of that district, correct?
Correct, because our part of our ordinance also does say that the accessory building has to be 2 feet above modeled soil. You still have to do your soil borings, a survey, you know, typically. And so, yeah, there's more than just saying I've got 20 acres, I can have 5 buildings, because truthfully, you can have 20, and as Sandy alluded to, you can have a very small portion that's buildable.
Yep. But then you're restricted by that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's covered then already.
Yes.
Oops. All right. You comfortable making a motion tonight, or what do you want to?
Yeah, I'll bump it back to this to make sure, to make it be within there and review. So I'll make a motion to have planning and zoning review Division 3 accessory uses, buildings and structures with a specific emphasis on sidewall height and square footage, and anywhere else as it relates in ordinance.
Well put. Motion's been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any other discussion? Yeah. Come on up, Joe.
Okay, you're talking square footage and that there. You're looking at still cumulative square footage. And then if you're going 6 acres and more, right now it says you can have 3 accessory buildings to a cumulative square footage of 3,600. You want us to look at that part of it too? How many accessory buildings and overall square footage, or?
So with what was recently, what Mr. Horton put through with accessory and the things that are exempt and everything like that, so specifically within their 30-671 and 30-672.
Okay.
How they're listed out the same way for on the buildable chart. They both have exactly the same language, which, and again, understanding our zoning maps, we have our ones that are bigger than RAs and RAs that are big. I get all that. So and that's why I agree with the fact that it has acreage there listed, because different topography plays into it and everything like
You
that.
still want P and Z to look at square footage,
Square footage.
cumulative or otherwise?
I'd like to see it go away from the cumulative on the multiple, because you're still going to be left with the number of buildings you can have.
If you want us to address that, just put it in the motion so we know, we don't come back again with other questions regarding square footage or number of buildings or the acreage. The proposed thing was 6 acres and more. We could go to 9 acres or something. You know, I mean, depending on building size and everything else, height, size. But like Susan said, there's other criteria that comes into play that normally gets looked at before it comes to planning and zoning for variance or whatever. If she sees a problem with the site plan or whatever, she will recommend a variance or review it, maybe through the building officials. I don't know how the process goes, but a lot of times it's handled before it ever gets back to P and Z. If the majority of the board would like us to look at and review it, we'll have at it again, see what we can do. But I just want to be sure we get more specific about what we're supposed to address, so we don't have to come back again because somebody wants some little thing changed again. Okay, thank you.
Agreed, Joe. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Yeah. And that's where I guess I was going with there's permitted accessory uses within each zoning district. So you're gonna, you know, for example, in RA, you're permitted 1 accessory building other than a private garage on a parcel that is less than 6 acres. And then you're permitted up to 3 on a parcel 6 or larger. But then when you go up to that chart, that's not counted. I would still keep it at the 3, like you said, or what it is, but the cumulative and the size should be variable on the size of the acreage.
So in your motion, you kind of left a broad statement in there that and any related areas.
Because they jump out, and that's the thing. You can,
Does that cover what Joe is asking for clarification on? Because you'll
To
be at
me,
the
it
next
does.
P and Z meeting.
To
'cause
me,
you're
it does.
P&Z Supervisor, right?
in the sense that it and Susan can attest to it, that it's clean up of words, and sometimes you'll find that somewhere 14-inch sidewalls is gonna be mentioned somewhere else. We just want to make sure they're able to go clean up and make those be the same as well,
Okay,
is my intent with that.
okay. And you'll be at the P and Z meeting, so you can
Yes.
clarify that as, okay. All right, that motion has been made and seconded. Is there any other discussion before we move on? Hearing none, all signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Hearing none, motion passes 5-0. That was a long one. Thank you for everybody's patience. Move on to 11.2, which is senior housing discussion. Mr. Joe Dolphy. And Mr. Ed Kramer.
It's nice to be popular, whatever. Or maybe not so.
Okay.
Ed
Go ahead.
Kramer here. I just wanted to say this kind of got started because I didn't know if the funding was still available from the county. And I called the county person and found out because, you know, the whole board has changed hands and I didn't know if you're signing the paper every year to continue with the stuff. And I was working on, I feel senior housing is something important for our township. As you've just seen with the rabbit hop and stuff like that, who took care of it all? The seniors. We come to the Halloween party. It's run by the seniors. We have 1,000 kids back there for that. So and they're just to the point that they need a different place to live. They can't live in the same house. We all built split entries at one time, and then we can't get up and down anymore. So that's what it kind of started out. And I seen that the funding is still available. And we were working on an area over here by Sunnyside Church, trying to get it. It's not that big an area. Then I remembered that we have the area in the back here that is not designated parkland. So the township can do what they want with that land. So that's where it kind of started. And I mentioned to Joe, and I'll let Joe take over.
Well, and I know there's been whatever comments from the woods that this has been, you know, forced on anybody. It came up less than a month ago. Ed come to me. He said, "What about that property down here? We got ball fields there haven't been used for years." Okay, and it wasn't until last week when I was made aware that they got the church group, their softball team wants to use the fields for that. We had that 20 years ago too with softball teams, but it hasn't been used for many years back there. It would, Ed and I discussing it, being its township property, it could be a use for senior housing, like you know, what's the word for senior housing? Not assisted living, but people that are independent living, something of sorts. And I don't know, I guess the reason that I put it on the agenda was Ed had talked to the county commissioner about it, found $1 a month that we supposedly have and whatever in the HUD money. But he didn't want to pursue it or go further if the board is going to shoot it down anyhow. And that's why I'm bringing it to the board, or we are, Ed and I are. It is, you know, and I brought it to planning, and it's been on the agenda. I brought it up not this year, but 2 years before that on the annual meeting report. The senior housing was an issue that people would like to see addressed. And we have had some proposals for stuff, but it didn't really fit into our zoning stuff between the density requirements and whatever. The senior housing in other parts of Anoka County, they're owned by Anoka County, but managed by another agency. And it takes private enterprise out of it, and it keeps it to where it is senior housing. It won't evolve into low income housing. Yeah, 55 and over. And I looked at some of the demographics, and there's like 25% of the residents in this township are over 55. So I mean, there's a pretty substantial portion. And there has been several requests to people, what can we do when we can no longer maintain our property? And is there something available locally? And with its close, and again, I just found out last week that the park has intended use for that, if it's an ongoing intended use. And again, there's 3 ball fields back there. I know because I helped design them all way back in the 90s. But anyway, I don't know that you need all 3 of them. I don't know what Parks is intending to do if they're gonna. At the last town board meeting, you approved $9,000 to put lime on it. That was the other reason that Ed and I thought, well, let's see if we can head that off before you spend the money, not knowing that they had approved the use of the field for another thing. So,
Yeah.
but senior housing isn't going to happen overnight, but this is just a proposal, an option, senior option. So.
And the county, if the board's behind it, the county is more than willing to come here and explain it all to you and show you how the funding and stuff will go. And as I say, when the places are maintained and stuff like that and kept up, the ones over there in Ham Lake are some beautiful units. They're out there on Bunker Lake Road. They're real nice. They got 2 of them, one on both sides of Bunker Lake Road. And Ramsey County's got them. And
Washington County.
Well, yeah, it's a different county. But not Ramsey County, but City of Ramsey has got one. And I can't remember which other ones have got. Oak Grove.
Yeah, Oak Grove.
Oak Grove too. So
Are they single level or are they multi-level?
Multi-level. And yeah, you might worry, but you know, they put sprinkler systems in them if they're higher. So it takes care of it. They have the storage of the water and all that. They're all designed that way, you know.
Okay.
So they do designing and stuff, but they need the town board to stand behind it. And if you guys are
stay quiet,
willing, the county is more than willing to come out.
Stay quiet,
here
please.
and explain.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, thank you.
I just want to make one comment. We weren't in any way trying to circumvent the town board on this. It was just something that came up. County's on board with it, but they'd like to talk to the town board to explain to all of us, to explain more of the details. Because there's a whole lot of things that would have to be figured out where it's placed, the most advantageous place to put it. And that's all things that can be answered with the county representatives if the board is willing to listen to it and go one step further on this proposal.
Yep. No, don't go too far yet. Andy, you got P and Z? You got?
Yeah, I mean, we can, thank you for the information, but yeah, we could probably get something to get to where, because when I spoke with Commissioner Reinhardt, and maybe to, you know, hearing and building on this might be more of a town meeting type of thing at the scale and the size and the impact it has. That I'm not going to sit here as a board member and say, this is what we're doing. This is the input of everyone and everybody. So, you know, and we can get those players in the room and educate everybody.
I
And
think
everybody
this is
has a
what the
voice.
Residents would have to definitely have a special vote, election.
Absolutely. But this was just preliminary to check to see if the funding was
If
there.
you were willing to talk
Yeah.
to the county, and then the county, it wouldn't be just the commissioner, there'd be the representatives from the Housing
HRA.
and Urban Housing. Yeah, I mean, and this is just a very in its infancy, but we thought we better try to make some moves on it for the benefit of the seniors. They've requested something, and if we just sit on our hands, nothing will ever get done. Not saying you have to approve it or disapprove, but at least listen to the proposal that they've got.
Well, I appreciate it. You guys are called planning and zoning for a reason. You should be looking out 5 years, 15 years, 25 years. So whether it happens in a short time or, yeah, okay. But whether
The
it
gray
happens
hair, it's
quicker or
gotta be
later,
5
it's- So, but no, I think the preliminary work that you did is great. But then let's figure out how we move forward, the right people involved for the planning side of it.
through planning and zoning, or I mean, if you want to have, okay.
Well, the
County
board needs to be-
representatives, you want to go to P and Z or to the town board? I mean, we don't have to have a whole township. Anybody's invited to the meetings. No, not trying to shut anybody out. But we as a planning and zoning don't know a whole lot about what specifics are. Ed and I, we think it's an idea that could work, but we got to see what the county has to offer.
So
I look at it that information is typically free. So why not take the information?
and that's why I was saying a town meeting, because then everyone can engage. I mean, if it's P and Z, it's still a P and Z meeting and you're still controlled by a board. If it's here, you're still controlled by a board. If it's a town meeting and we're presented, everyone has a right to speak and learn.
Yeah, agreed.
So have it put on, go ahead, Ed.
I'm just gonna say that if they would have had that 5 minute or that 3 minute last meeting, I would have maybe been able to bring it up before it got out of hand.
Mm. All right.
So you want us to put it or have somebody put it on planning and zoning agendas, depending on what the county can come up with?
It would
No.
be a separate meeting.
The town meeting,
Of the town board or the planning commission?
The
or
town,
Just the
kind of like
town
an
board?
annual meeting.
town meeting.
Not
Do we
the
want to
annual.
jump right to a town meeting without, like, is that the first step? Is a big town meeting about it?
It's an information meeting.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
You'll
That's
have to
all I would be.
coordinate that with the county representatives and through the office, figure out what date, the special meeting, you don't want to have it on a business meeting night, I know that.
Right. Yeah.
Kind of
We'll
like the way it
coordinate.
is, so,
Figure it.
Thank
Perfect.
you.
Any questions left from the board? No.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah. Thank you, Ed and Joe. Yep. Go ahead. Come on up. Name and address, please.
Hi, Julia Beckstrom, 22865 West Martin Lake Drive Northeast. I think it's a great idea. My concern bringing it to a town meeting is I hear you asking for kind of permission to pursue it. If we brought it to a town meeting, you're not going to have any answers to the questions people are going to want to ask. So I think that's way premature. I think they have to do some due diligence with the county, get some ideas, get some more information, because otherwise you're going to have people up in arms saying, what about this? What about that? And you guys aren't going to have any answers if you don't do some work ahead of time.
Yeah, let's let us dig into it too. I thank you. Because I don't know what Reinhardt's or anybody's going to present, and if it's 10 minutes long, it's probably not worth calling a special town meeting for it. So let us do a little digging into it as well. Yep, come on up, please.
Dennis Erickson again. I support all these seniors in there. I know a lot of them, deal with them every day, help them out. Bucky Broadbent, been there for 38 years, helping him out and doing things. These people need a place to go. I don't think anybody in this township has a problem with finding a place for them to go. What I got a problem with, this was turned down 2 years ago, 4 years ago by Tom Carlisle approached with it, had land for it. I'm gonna be the first one to put up with stink about putting it out back here. My kids grew up over on this park. That's where they were at when they could get away from mom and dad. The skate park, the ball field. I still see people. I take my dogs over there every once in a while and run them around. There's people using them ball fields for practices with little girls, mini mite or t-ball and everything else. I know Tom Carlisle very well. I talked to him this morning in regards to this. He wants to be part of this. He always has. His mom, he wanted to do it for his mom and dad. He's got a place down there by his school. I can speak on behalf of my father. Them people at my dad's place in Annandale, they love watching them kids out on that playground every day. His facility is right across the street. And they love sitting there watching that, watching little kids grow and playing with them, waving to them and stuff like that. So back here, you know, it's gonna be detrimental to the community because I know the neighbors over here, if you lived right there and all of a sudden you put up a 6-story building back here, there goes their property line. They're gonna come screaming. So like the other lady said, there's a lot more work to be done. I know Tom Carlisle has done a lot of this groundwork already. So I'd like to see him be involved in whatever you got. He couldn't be here tonight, so I figured I'd kind of speak on behalf of him, talking with him this morning. But, you know, Bucky Broadbent, Gruitz, Mrs. Brown, all these people are great people. They grew this community. They made this community what it is today. Joe Dolphy, Kramer, they've been there their whole lives. Why should they have to leave? You know, it's terrible. I understand it because Koch is fully involved, Cindy's fully involved with everything that goes on. So, I mean, take that into consideration because this board changes so much in the 45 years that I've been here. Like I said, there's this law for the height, there's 16 foot, you know, it just changes so much. You guys got a lot on your hands, but take into consideration, like you've been saying, what the residents really want and what we as residents, the younger generation that helps them out on their land in this, what we hear from them. You know, she don't want to leave her house. She don't want to leave her house. I don't blame them. I wouldn't want to either. They worked their whole lives to get there.
Yep.
So, but to take this away from the community in the back that gets utilized throughout the whole year, spring, summer, fall, winter, like I said, my kids are 26, 28. That's where they grew up, is out there on that playground. I'm going to cross the street. You know, Tom's got properties available. There's other things available that I don't know if it's going to cost money or not. I know the details and what he proposed before in doing this senior high rising. But I know there's a lot of people, and I know there's a lot of people in this room that are 100% behind doing the senior, whether it's little villas, whether it's a multi-story, whether it's just temporary care, whether it's, you know, assisted living and then going to memory care. That's a totally different deal. You're involved with the county and the state and the federal government then.
Oh, this is so preliminary location. I mean, it's just pie in the sky right now on different ideas as far as I've seen it. So location isn't
right.
Not necessarily going back there. There's a lot of
Right.
research.
And we just approved $9,000 in the budget to put lime down on there. I heard a guy today up at the country store saying, "God, we're getting new gravel up there so I can take kids up there and practice." You know, I watched a guy probably a year ago with his daughter in fast pitch softball. They were there every night for 2 hours on that diamond, measured out and playing on it. I mean, so, but the big thing is kids use that. They got the skating rink, they got everything. So, and to take that away, even though it's not listed as a park, we're never going to get it back. Never going to get it back. So the kids, younger kids won't have anything.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, the baseball fields would be done if they had the money. But you have to have, has to be in use in order to get a grant to get more.
Yep. All right. Anything else on this topic? Yep. Come on back up, Joe Dolphy.
This property back here, there's 18 acres there altogether, right? But the recycling center's taken up maybe 4 or 5. There's still a lot of acreage, and even if there was to be a structure built on there, the playground wouldn't disappear. One of the ball fields could stay there. And that's just not necessarily earmarking that property for it. It was an option for where to place senior housing that was in close proximity to the senior center and other activities, township activities. There's other properties that can be done. The one on the Betker Preserve that Carlisle presented, there was obstacles involved with that we'd have to do a whole bunch of ordinance changes. And to be honest with you, the neighbors weren't real happy about it.
Yeah.
And but that can be handled down the road with other things. And that was just, again, a concept plan. We didn't see any real definite things on it. Ed brought it up, and we just thought we better keep something on the burner until we get it going. This property is an option. If somebody else has got other property, great. But I think before we start looking at too deep, we need to see what resources we have from the county. And make sure that the biggest thing is make sure the board is going to be behind it once it starts and not shoot it down because of little obstacles. Everything's got an obstacle. But if you can just make sure that the board is interested in pursuing senior housing of some kind. I'm not trying to take advantage of Parks or anybody else. I just want to be sure that we keep this going. And maybe it'll bring some people to the forefront that have land they want to sell or donate. This church property down there that was 5 years ago that was brought forward or so, they'd have to buy the property and they couldn't, it wasn't able to come up with the people that would sell it. They didn't either couldn't contact them. It was just, that's why this property came to our mind. It's something the township already owns and it's available maybe. And again, I'm not gonna take anything away from Parks, but I can see, according to past usage in 5 years, that ball field could be sitting there vacant again. Because it has sat for a long time without being used, and 2 ball fields on the end, so. But again, it's not committing to anything, just want to be sure that as proposals come forward, the board is going to be willing to listen to them and address them.
Yeah.
Thank
Alright, thanks for the clarification. Yep. All right, Lisa, did you started to
Nope,
say,
I
okay,
was
you're good?
answered.
Okay, perfect. All right. Done with this topic. What do you want to do here? Look into it and, okay, we'll look into it and we'll bring it back. All right, let's move forward. Old business. This is number 12, road grading bids. So as you remember, what I said earlier was that the board would look into options for holding an informational meeting, whether it makes sense to have a town meeting or have a board meeting or have a P and Z meeting. So we're gonna have to look into that part further and then we'll bring it back. So just so that people can hear, the question is do we meet on the side to figure that out? What'll happen is we'll probably work through, our P and Z person, our clerk. We can't meet and have a quorum unless it's in front of the board or in front of the people. So it might come up at another meeting in the future, but yeah, we'll get working on it and figure out how we're gonna move forward with it. Yeah. All right, okay, so the road group bid. So here's what happens. So 2 weeks ago, we had our board meeting. We had a deadline for the bids to be submitted. In the past, we've allowed them to be mailed in, hand delivered in, or emailed in. And the problem that we have is, of course, we've changed a lot of things, our technology and stuff in the office. Somehow one of the bids came in and it actually went into a junk mail folder. So we did not receive that bid when we opened the bids at the last meeting. I've talked to both contractors. They're aware of it. They understand the situation. I got legal advice from the attorney. He said, basically, to make this legal, we have to bring it back tonight and readdress the motion. It wouldn't have been a problem if the motion or if the bid that we had opened last week was the lower of the 2 bids, but it wasn't. The bid that came in afterwards was $15 lower. So the bid that we entertained last week or last meeting and made a motion on was at $165 an hour. And the lowest bid came in from DW Companies at $150 an hour. I confirmed with DW Companies that they are not going to charge us travel time to get to our township because they are located a little ways away. And if they need to bring in 2 graders, they will. If they need to do rapid response. So they are flexible and comparable to the other bidder. So given that they are the lowest bid, I would make a motion that we award the 2025 grading to DW Companies in the amount of $150 per hour. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right, motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion?
Do we have to do anything with the motion that we made 2 weeks ago?
The attorney did not,
Motion or anything?
the attorney did not say that we had to rescind that motion. He just said we had to just redo what we did.
Okay.
Yeah, but thank you for that question. All right, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, motion passes. All right, we'll move on to new business, animal control.
Right, I apologize. I checked my email before I came. So I had a few residents come to me concerned about Gratitude Farms and that. And I seen it was on social media also. I realize that we cannot eliminate the contract at this time. I did talk to her. She actually did say, find out today that if we can change it to where if that month she does not come and pick up any animals, she will not charge us for that month. So that would save us a little money, hopefully. I know that Columbus, Horse Lake and several others are using, did that get put in here? I don't recall the name of the place of, I have to look at my email. But I'm just concerned that possibly we might lose our dog catcher in the near future due to some issues that has been going on. So I was just trying to be proactive. I know that East Bethel, Bethel, the townships north of us, they don't have one. They just call the cops. But then I know that the police we are charged for that then. And I know that East Bethel, they're brought down to the Humane Society. I believe it's Brooklyn Center. So it'd be a drive for our residents to get there. The agency that I looked at would bring them to Northwoods, which at least would be closer. In the future, they will be building a place down in Oakdale, but that'll be a few years down the road. They are a little bit more expensive. I believe it's like, it was close to, I think, 2,000 for the year. So, but it's just something that we need to look at. I just wanted the residents to know that we are aware of this and that, you know, we will take action when we can, but we do have the contract with them and don't really want to have issues because we broke the contract once it was in place.
Very good. I appreciate you doing some homework on that. It's not easy to figure all that stuff out.
So, you know, if we ever did get to it, if I'm around, it's like if they had the animal, I would even drive them over to Northwoods myself just to.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Lisa. Appreciate that. All right, Linwood Family Fun Day. You waited a long time for this.
All right, from what I understand, what we need to do is, as a committee, we need to resign as a committee from the township. Because what we would like to do is join the fire association. And that way we can be under their 501c3. So we will be able to do fundraising. We would be able to not have to use the township office to do all our administrative work, which would save you a lot of time, us some money, and put more money into the actual event and roll over the funds from year to year so that when something comes up, we're able to use that money for like buying more tents, because eventually I will be done completely and we use all my tents and tractors and everything for the event. So whenever we're done with using my equipment, I want it to be able to have its own equipment to use. Not saying they're buying tractors though.
Yeah.
So what we're requesting from the board is to accept the committee's resignation and accept us to transfer to the fire association and go under their 501c3.
Perfect. All right. Any questions?
Is this something that we might want to get some feedback from the community on, or is this kind of just like a standard?
So what it is instead of this committee, instead of these individuals working as a committee of Linwood, it'll allow them to operate as a nonprofit. So they'll actually be able to do fundraising. Right now, they're limited to whatever the people at the annual meeting say that they can spend on the event. Even if they go out and they got $30,000 in donations, they're still limited to the amount that the people authorize them. As a nonprofit, they'll be able to go out and do fundraising. And they'll also be able to give write-offs to people that do donate to them. So there'd be a tax write-off and an incentive to do that. They're basically gonna run the exact same event, maybe even better, you know, a better event this way than they did as a committee. There was so many restrictions and there was so much time delay between when they wanted to get a contract signed with somebody, you know, an event, the bouncy houses or whatever. by the time we approved it and then the checks were written, it was a difficult process to go through. So all it's doing is streamlining everything for them, giving them the ability to make more money that they can put into the program, and give Linwood a better event. So basically they'll be renting the property, or getting permission from the township to use the property for the Linwood event.
This is like an impossible question to answer, but like, do you foresee there being like some kind of angle here where people might get upset later on? Like, can you believe they just did that without soliciting feedback from the community, or is this just a pretty straightforward?
I personally think this is straightforward.
Okay.
Yeah, I do, but anybody else can definitely weigh in on your opinion as well.
We're open to any comments or opinions from anyone. Yes.
Well,
So you got some thoughts
I
on.
know that if they do raise more money, they get to keep that money to go towards the
Yes.
future.
Linwood Family Fun Days, we want to grow this event. Right now with having it on. We can only go to what we are allowed to. We can't fundraise. We can't get more, oh my gosh. Oh, boy. But, wow. You made me lose my train of thought. Where was I at? Yeah, so we want to be able to fundraise, right? So like, we want to have a 20-minute fireworks show, right? Like everybody likes.
Stacy.
Yeah, definitely beat Stacy Days, right? But everybody wants like more fireworks. That'd be a lot of fun. But right now, with the limitations that we have, we can't fundraise for a bigger fireworks show. We can't have a lot of live entertainment at the front and the back. And we can't grow it. So like and another big thing too is offering incentives to our volunteers, right? We can't offer them. If we go under the fire association, at that point, what we can do is we can say, hey, if you come volunteer for us for 2 hours, we can give you and your family, wristbands to go on all the bounce houses. We can let you go into the petting zoo for free. We can let you go on a pony ride for free, right? So there's a lot more incentive to get the volunteers to come and actually volunteer and help us out, because this is a big event and we need our community, and our community should be rewarded for helping. So there's a lot of incentives for our community, a lot of things to just grow it, make it big, and just make it awesome.
Is this common in other areas to have? Okay.
Yep.
Very.
Andover is a huge, I live over in Andover, and they have a huge community event. I mean, well, we can sit on our roof and watch the fireworks from there, but oh, you go.
Andover did a post on their Family Fest today. And they're a nonprofit, self-funded event and receive no financial support from the city. All their operating costs are covered through fundraising and generous donations from community members and businesses, straight from their page. So we are one of the only ones that are not a 501c3.
Will we continue to support financially?
For now, yes, because we have absolutely no money.
Yeah.
Maybe in the future, we will be more self-sufficient like Andover is. That is a long-term goal. I would not say a short-term goal.
Yep. But a lot of it is just fundraising, and plus all the proceeds that we get, right? The wristband, I'm close enough. The wristband sales, the ticket sales and stuff like that, we get to keep that and roll it over into the next year. We can also ask for donations during the day, and we can have, like I think with Easter that just happened. We were able to go out and say, hey, like we want to get volunteers. Well, now in that, sense, we can say, hey, we need volunteers or we need donations. We can kind of do multiple things, get more involved with the community, get the community more involved with us. I mean, that's kind of what Family Fun Days is about, right? It's getting the community involved.
Very good. Any other questions?
No, lessen the burden on government.
Perfect.
I make a
So-
motion to abolish the Linwood Family.
And am I?
Well, it has to be done, right? There we go, done.
Kill us, Bob. Kill us.
Even though I love most of you,
Yeah.
Sam.
Sorry, Sam.
Yeah, Bob had the previous meeting, so he probably took pleasure in that. I will second that motion.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any other discussion?
On Sam's comment, when Sam asked them if the township will still donate financial to them, cute question to them, Sam, but that's a board decision, 100%. Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it definitely can be done and it's been talked about for a long time, but it
Yeah.
can definitely be done.
So, and that's currently we have money that was set aside by the,
26.
by the people.
It sounds like the plan is to do that even if we haven't decided.
And the hope would be that, like they said, be able to reduce the cost and burden that is needed from the people each year because of those revolving funds.
Got it.
All right, that motion's been made.
And do final discussion. Thank you to them because as they've stated, most people don't know this event. Yes, there's a dollar amount set, but there is above and beyond a dollar amount in the time and energy and personal property donated by these individuals. That is not a cost that is even captured and needs to be realized. And your tents, your everything, and the time and energy from all of you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm glad we still get to retain that. But thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Still want to keep Andy.
Association.
All right, we'll go ahead with the vote. So all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, 13.3 cemetery request. Barb, did you still want to speak?
Good evening, board.
Your name and address
At
too,
the
please.
board meeting in
Barb?
March, my request for an
Barb.
exception to the cemetery rules was vetoed.
Hey, Barb.
What?
Give me your name and
Oh,
your
I'm
street
sorry.
address. That's all right.
Barb Sletton, 7701 Viking Boulevard Northeast.
Okay, and then hold on 1 second. Okay, we just need to have some quiet, please. All right, thank you. Go ahead, Barb.
Okay. At the March board meeting, my request for an exception of the cemetery rules was vetoed because it would set a precedent. And I understand that you do not want to have to deal consistently with individual cases. You directed that the rules be looked at to address the scenario that was presented. I am here to offer an amendment that I believe would both address the concerns of the objections and allow families in this scenario to bury their deceased loved ones. To present the amendment, I would like to call forward Brian Langlois.
Brian Langlois, 6360 232nd Avenue. That's just a copy of the standards and regulations in Linwood Cemetery. I think it's important that we first get a little bit of the historic context for the board and for the group. This particular scenario that was brought up in last month's meeting dates back 3 years. It's been brought to the committee, cemetery committee, multiple times and rejected on multiple instances. And to that, the committee has not brought any solutions they have not made an attempt to correct this. So we took the advice of this board. And I believe both John Olson and Andy Lutke, you both stated if it was in the language, you'd vote for it. So I'm here to present that language. And first I want to read the amendments portion. So page 5. 1, this document shall remain in full effect and enforcement until revoked, withdrawn, or amended by the Linwood Town Board. The Town Board reserves the right to change these standards and regulations as they deem necessary. Family members of the deceased shall comply with the rules at the time of burial, even if different than the rules that were in place when a lot may have been assigned. Third, The town board reserves the right to waive any rule on a case-by-case basis. Such action shall be duly noted in the township minutes. Now, we submitted a petition, effectively 2 days worth, and I did email a copy of our proposed changes. They're actually line adds to 2 sections. And we have effectively in a little more than 2 days collected over 100 signatures. So the definitions, first part that we would ask a line item be added to. And I'm going to read through the definitions so everyone is aware of some of the definitions that are referred to in there are also referred to in these changes. Resident, a person living in Linwood Township as their primary residence at the time of their death and paying property tax or rent on said property. Partner, husband, wife, or significant other at the time of their death. Dependent individual, a minor son, daughter, or daughter who is the biological child, stepchild, foster child, sibling, step sibling, up to the age of 24 or 24 if a full-time student or someone, who is under legal guardianship of a Linwood resident who has the legal duty to support them. Number 4, parent or guardian, someone who has the legal duty to support a dependent individual. Number 5, proof of residency or former residency. Methods of proving Linwood Township residency or former residency include, but are not limited to, a driver's license, property tax statement, or mailed correspondence, which shows the name of the deceased and the Linwood Township address. Number 6, intermittent deposition of human remains or cremations by burial. 7, vault, a sealed container constructed of a non-biodegradable material, enclosed the casket or cremation remains, intended to prevent sinking of the ground surface. 8, putting a slab, usually of concrete, that is horizontal flush with the surface of the ground on which the grave marker is placed. The footing itself is usually unornamented and considered structural, not part of the marker itself. Flat marker, a memorial of granite or other approved material that does not extend above the surface. Sorry, that was 9. 10, headstone, memorial of granite or other approved material placed at the head end of the grave and may extend above the surface of the ground. Number 11, administrative fee, a fee per burial paid to Linwood Township for the cemetery fund to be used to maintain, improve, and beautify the cemetery grounds. This fee does not include the cost of interment. The fee is determined by the town board. Our ask to be added to the definitions on number 12, qualified non-resident, biological child, stepchild, foster child, sibling or step sibling of any age whose parent, guardian are qualified legal Linwood residents. Any questions on that first line? Okay, I'll continue and then I can speak to any questions on these. The next section, people entitled to a grave site. Number 1, any person who is a Linwood Township resident at the time of their death shall be entitled to a grave site free of charge. Number 2, partner of a Linwood Township resident who is buried in the cemetery shall be entitled to the assignment of one adjacent lot. The reservation of the adjacent lot shall be made when the first deceased partner's burial application is submitted to the township. Administrative fees shall apply if the surviving partner is not a Linwood Township resident at the time of death. Number 3, a dependent individual living in Linwood Township at the time of their death is entitled to a lot free of charge. Number 4, the parents or legal guardians of a dependent individual who was a Linwood resident at the time of a dependent individual's death shall be entitled to the assignment of 2 lots. An administrative fee shall apply if at the time of the parent guardian's death, they are not Linwood Township residents. Number 5, any Linwood Township resident who has permanently moved her residence out of the township for healthcare reasons shall be entitled to a gravesite free of charge. In addition, the partner of any such person shall be entitled gravesite free of charge. 6, all former Linwood Township residents and the partner of each such resident who have not had gravesites assigned to them shall each be entitled to a gravesite. An administrative fee shall be paid and proof of former residency shown prior to the time of each burial. Number 7, any former Linwood resident and partner of any former resident who have had reserved gravesites assigned to them prior to 1999 will have the opportunity to retain 2 of the assigned sites upon the payment and the administrative fee at the time of each burial. Number 8, the cremains of the relative of a deceased Linwood Township resident and their partner may be interred in an occupied lot with permission from the owner of the lot or a family member with the authority to do so. An administrative fee shall apply. 1 flat marker shall be allowed within the lot if there is an existing headstone in the walkway. The add to this section would be number 9. The remains of a qualified non-resident may be interred in a lot of a current resident. This would be the lot otherwise selected for the current resident, not an additional lot. Now, any questions?
Yeah, come on up, Cindy.
You said you emailed this.
I'm Cindy Gruitt, 23049 Sunrise Road. I'm on the cemetery committee. I did not realize this was coming up. I was here for something else. Okay. I had a committee quite a few years ago. I got back over 200 lots that people had moved out of the area and they were not able to come back in because they were not residents here anymore or paying taxes. Now we're talking about a family here that is living here that wants their son buried, but they are not buried here. What if they move out? They're not paying taxes anymore, correct? It is not fair to people that are paying taxes that are here. And all of a sudden we have a few families that want their sons buried here. I have a son buried here, but my husband was buried first. That's totally different. These people could set a precedence for, oh, well, I'm coming up to the town board and I want my son buried here, or I want my daughter buried here, but I don't have a gravesite. I might be 30 years old and my kid might die. They move out when they're 40, they're not paying anymore. This is why we keep it this way. And it's from the 1800s that this was brought to our attention in our history of our township cemetery. Do you have anything? Do you have any questions for me?
Appreciate your comments. Thank you.
Okay.
To that position. The statement that somebody could get buried if you had a minor child, God forbid, passed away, any taxpayer in this community, they lost a child while the child was still a resident, they would be buried on that site.
Yeah.
Subsequently, please let me finish. Subsequently, years later, the parents could move away and decide not to be buried here. That is the scenario that each and every taxpayer in this community faces. And that's what the board, what the committee would face in our cemetery. There's no difference. The only difference is that we're asking that adult non-residents that are the offspring of current taxpayers be extended the rights that they would have had they died younger. That's it. It doesn't take up more lots. It doesn't change the fact that these people might move away and now you've got 200 extra lots that you ultimately, all you're gonna do is push them on to the next person. So I don't think that's a valid argument.
So I think, not to speak on behalf of the entire board, but I think the board understands both your perspectives. I think it's really, really clear. But the cemetery committee hasn't met since the last meeting.
Correct.
Is that,
Right.
so,
Our meeting is in May.
right, so I know that there's been feedback given to certain people in that committee. I am very optimistic that there will be something that'll come back from that committee that will help address this. But I think it's premature for this board to not give the committee an opportunity to see that through first. That's my opinion. I'll open it up to the rest of the board to give your opinions as
I
well.
just want to say one more thing. These people that want to be buried here were married. We're not a teenager. We're not a young person married out of our area.
Mm.
So to me, they are not a resident. Once the parent dies, they can be buried with them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'd like to,
Just
I'd
real
like
quick,
to
because
s-
we do
I
totally know.
understand, there's been a long meeting, but this is important.
Mhm.
And again, I disagree with that position. True, that person is an adult. Now, let's put it into an adult perspective. You could have a teenage child, goes off to college, changes their address, dies on campus. And technically, by the way the rules are written, they would not be able to be interred in Linwood until one of their parents died. So these people may be suffering, looking at these cremains, waiting for one of them to pass away, for the right to bury them on a lot that was already designated for one of them. This is, we've canvassed out of all the over 100 people that we canvassed, only 2 dissenting people from here. 2, and this is if you want to look at it as a cross section of this community, one was a board member, correctly so, didn't sign. The other, I believe, was you. So if this needs to go further to a petition, because I don't have faith after 3 years of trying for the committee to do something. And this, as I read in the amendments, this board has the power to do this and write this amendment. And that's what we're asking for tonight, is for this board to take action and not postpone it, not hand it back to the committee for regurgitation and rejection, as we've already seen.
All right, thank you, Brian.
So this adult child is buried here. And the parents decide to move out and they're not a taxpayer anymore. Then what? What's going to happen? That's the situation we're in.
Mhm.
And it was designated by the Green family to have a free cemetery for the taxpayers of this community. And that's what I'm going by. I'm also in the history group, so I know what has gone on.
All right, thank you.
I would like to say something.
Okay,
My name is Sherry Langley, 6360-232nd. The couple that is trying to bury their child have lived here for 40 years. I really doubt
address
that they would.
the board.
Oh,
You gotta
sorry.
address the board, not.
So they've lived here 40 years. I really doubt at this point they're going to move away, right? People winter down there, but this is their home. This is where they live. My religion, and I don't know about other people's religions, but our family members do not ascend to heaven until after they're buried. And so I feel like some of the people that live in the Linwood Township, I did get feedback from them that did comment about that. And they said, how can they make this family wait so long for their child to finish the burial process?
All right, thank you. Yeah.
A rebuttal to that.
Name.
Sandy Lathrop, on Lake Drive. We are not refusing to let them bury their child. We are saying that child is not entitled to a site in Linwood Township. They can be buried wherever they want. So to be saying we're not letting them bury their child so they can move on, no, we're just saying they're not entitled to a site here. And if we start letting people like that, then what about all of the people who have lived in the township forever that cannot be assigned a site? Even though they know they're dying, they cannot be assigned a site until they die. So we're letting these people get a site before they're dead, but people who have born and raised here 90 years lived here. Nope, you're not entitled to a site till the day you die. If we're going to start saying, well, you've lived here 40, 50 years, you're entitled to a site. Well, then I know some people who want to start signing up for sites. So I think we have to really, if we allow this, we are opening up the door to saying many other people are entitled to sites as well.
All right, thank you.
I have to
One
correct that.
quick second.
I have to correct her statement because it's misstated. This is not a,
back up to
this
the
is
board.
not a new site. It clearly says in the language. So I asked, the board has seen the language. It is very clearly stated, this is a current taxpayer and it is a site that would have gone to them. It is not an additional site. The only difference is the age and the grant. You won't have people coming in because it's already, we have not compromised any of those restrictions with this new language. It doesn't allow for somebody that's moved away to change their mind and come back here and demand a site. Very clearly, it does not allow that in the language. It provides a small, small allowance, which takes with age and residency. And again, as I read in the amendment section, this board could have, under their power, granted this exception in last month's meeting. You could still grant that exception today if you really don't want the headache and have to deal with the board potentially rejecting it again. You, as a board, can vote tonight to allow for their son to be interred. That's an exception. We'd prefer, because of the canvassing we did and the talks we've had with people, they feel strongly about this. They're blown away about the fact that their child could die at school and not be allowed to be buried until one of them dies.
Totally understand it. So if it went to a vote tonight and it got declined, think about that.
So these
Possibility
100
too.
people that signed this, did they get all
Okay.
this? Did they
Let's-
get
hold-
everything explained to them?
Let's,
They all got this and it got explained to them.
okay. Hold on a second.
Okay.
I'm gonna let Dan speak just for a second.
Sure.
And then we gotta move on, because this is, we'll leave it up to the board if they want to take action, but if they don't want to take action, then we go back to what we had said a meeting ago. And we're gonna let that committee come forward.
I just want to say that this guy was a veteran. And it gives you guys the right to deny him burial is absolutely ridiculous. If these people have been here for 40 years, where are they gonna go? Yeah, you sit and laugh.
No.
You're the
Dan,
problem.
Dan,
She's the problem. The committee's the problem. The committees are the problem. Everybody here has been here forever and they think that change isn't gonna happen. It's time for change to happen.
Talk is waiting to be buried.
it's, no.
He can be buried at Fort Snelling and so can his folks.
Okay,
So leave it at that.
we're stopping public comment on this issue right now.
Parents.
Barb, one last.
Parents are here. I'm Barb Sletton again.
Yep.
The parents are here.
Okay.
You did say that you would go back to the committee. The committee hasn't met yet. But I think the committee is very well slanted in their decision already to not accept this. I applied to joined the committee and I was not accepted. There was another person who I believe may support the scenario that were the rule changes that we were supporting. And I don't believe that person was also accepted on the committee. You have a sexton and his wife who are of one opinion, vote similarly. You have a new person who maybe isn't really comfortable with opposing that person's position. And you have Cindy who you know what her position is. And so I think sending it back to the committee, it's going to fail. I think you asked that we make an effort to get this scenario, if it comes up time and time again, voted on. I think that we should be allowed to have you give this some very good consideration and voting tonight. Thank you.
Thanks. So, Sam, just to give you a real quick background, I think it's 4 times since probably 2021 that this family, it's a couple that has an adult son that is deceased. They had 2 cemetery plots assigned to them. They cremated him. They would like him to be buried in one of the plots that one of them or both of them would go in. They said that they'll give back the other plot. And then all 3 of them would be buried. The only thing they're asking for is that we allow them to bury their son's urn before either one of them would pass. The way our rules are written is that one of them would have to pass and be buried before that son's urn would be able to be buried in the same plot. So what they're asking for is that we make an exception to our policy and allow their son to be buried first and, understand that they were going to be buried later. On the flip side of that is our rules don't specifically say that you can do that right now. And the committee's concern is that if their son's urn was buried there and the exception was made, if they decided to be buried someplace else, then we didn't end up following our policy. So that's it in a nutshell as to what the issue is. A meeting or 2 ago, what we did was we the board sent back to the cemetery committee to relook at the wording and that rule to see if they could make something work in there without necessarily giving up the rules, but take a good look at it and figure out if there was a solution to it. And right now we are just waiting for that. Unfortunately, that committee doesn't meet every month like the rest of our committees. So we're waiting for them to meet in May and then come back. I've personally had conversations. That's why I said I'm optimistic that they're going to come back with something that will make people happy. It's just the timing of it, unfortunately, is poor that we have not a monthly meeting with that committee. So that's kind of some background. I may be a little bit off, but I don't think so.
Is there any opportunity to?
All right, thank you.
Well, that was my question is there this seems like a very specific case. And is it possible for just an exception to be granted for this kind of time sensitive thing and then to address the ordinance separately? Or is it just like, we got to change the ordinance and that's really the only option?
Well, it's up to the board's discretion as to
It
anything
is
that
more
we
than
want
one
to do.
family.
It is.
I know there's at least one more family and possibly a couple more.
But the request before us is from one family.
I guess what I'm saying is it seems like there's a little bit of bureaucracy to go through to do this the right way. We want to hear from the cemetery committee, but also it sounds like there's people who are hurting. Is there room to just relieve some of that pain while we go the correct route for addressing maybe if we do want to change this ordinance?
Like I said, it's up to the board. I mean, if somebody makes a motion to do this, then it's up to a vote. And if it passes, it passes. If it fails, then it's done. So that's.
And the fact that there are residents that got their lot before 99 and they do not live in Linwood, but they are guaranteed that lot to come back. Some of them were turned back. But so, and they don't have a kid, you know, they would not be able to bury their child here. We're just looking at where if it's a resident. And the wording that he has, I think would be excellent for the ordinance and would be able to move on from there.
So I'm in the position of still, I support it. I've said that. It needs to be, we get in this habit of just all this stuff and you can't gain traction or move forward with something. There's a process to it. We can do that process and we can fix it right for all the hurting families. Otherwise, are we gonna do an hour and a half at every meeting when everybody comes forward? Is that the ask? I'm not in favor of that. Fix it right.
Well, I think the
right.
ask that he was asking tonight was for the ordinance correction.
But what though? We weren't even presented that. It was verbal. It was written. I get that. I appreciate it. But it's not in the packet. It was not anything that we have for changing. There's policies, procedures. So let's follow that and make it right. There's a right way here. I said that, but I can't go forth and go against everything that we are trying to set right.
I don't want to change any ordinances tonight, but I would like to make a motion to let the people bury their son. In this specific case, make an exception.
All right, there's a motion on the table. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Any other discussion? Okay, hearing none, all in favor of said motion, signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Nay.
Opposed.
Motion fails. Like Andy said, we're gonna do this. We're gonna get there. We're gonna get there, but we're gonna do it right. And then, you know, not just for one person, because then if we make the exception here and the next person comes in and then the board doesn't go along with it, now there's no equity there. So it's what I think is a little bit of a flaw. And we need to fix the flaw. And when we do, it'll fix it for this very nice family that has been more put up with for years. So let's get this fixed for all involved. One more comment, Brian.
All right. Well, you've reached a decision on not granting an exception, which is fine. So is this board going to send the direction for the consideration of these amendments to the committee? Is for their next meeting in May? So,
Yeah.
so that the
Is that-
following,
So is that what you each one of us?
I emailed this top portion that explained 2 lines of amendments affected by, I read through it. I explained where it would go into it. I passed around for the group.
Okay.
What we need from.
Did that go to the clerk or did
Oh,
that
I was
go
gonna
to
say.
the board?
That's what I'm wondering. When was it
I
emailed?
went to the,
Last
email-
night,
I went to all your emails.
late last night.
So Brian, just get that document to Billy, because she has to do data retention on everything that comes through here.
Oh,
And then she can forward it on to the committee.
So is that your
Correct.
recommendation? The board will
Correct. Oh, yeah,
direct them to consider that language?
absolutely. Yeah, like I said, I'm very hopeful.
Well, that's like you said, you want to follow the process, Andy, and that's exactly what we did. We went back, we looked, we wrote, we offered up an amendment, and that's what we're asking you to do. So if it has to go through the committee, so be it. But this group needs to send it to that committee.
Yep. All right. We have to move
I
on.
just have one more,
10,
just one
like
more.
5 seconds.
She said that anything after 99, before 99, we all got cemetery things. After 40 years, they were taken away from the people. They cannot be buried here.
Yeah.
Do you know that?
Yeah. All
But you
right.
said not
Hold on.
all of them.
Okay,
Well,
let's move,
right.
200.
let's move on.
No,
We're done.
no, 40 years.
Stop.
My
Call the
girlfriend-
order.
We're done. This topic is done. Okay, board is taking action. We're moving on. All right, we're going on to 13.4 website upgrade options. Natalie?
Hello. So our contract is up in September. Well, we renew it usually every year. 2 years ago, we were supposed to get upgraded to Drupal 7, Drupal 9, rather, we're at Drupal 7. The problem is we hadn't, and Civic Plus actually, they had gone through problems with that and they developed a better system, which is what they want us to upgrade to now. In your packet is what they're proposing is our upgrade options for the premium website or for the standard website. Our standard or their standard template, they said wouldn't really, what we have on our website is more than what the standard template would offer. And so their recommendation is the premium option. Then we can customize it. We can make it do what we want, make it look how we want, operate how we want, and then go from there. There's a few other options that we can add to it, like modules that they call. So we could have like jobs. There's some websites like I think Blaine has it, Anoka County, or I'm sorry, Mille Lacs County has it, where it's a form. You have all your jobs description, you have your pay rate, you have your expectations and everything like that. People can fill it out online. That's an add-on module. We come included with 12 modules, kind of similar to what we have on the website now. But our current pricing is $2,500 for our website now. The premium website is $5,000 yearly. And that's with a one-time implementation fee of $2,100. I was looking through our contract in 2020 when we had it, and the implementation for the build and all of that was $7,500. It's kind of backwards now, but that's kind of where we're at as far as upgrading. Our other option is to go with another service. And we're kind of limited on time as far as going with another service. We would have to give Civic Plus a 60-day termination fee, termination notice. Our renewal is September, so that puts us around July. Bill time with them, once we get an idea of what we want to go with tonight, they can give us and get us started. A premium website is going to take upwards of 28 weeks. So that's about 6 months worth of build time. It's meetings and getting creation. Remember during my employee review, we talked about the 16 to 18 iterations of what we ended up with. Yep. It's going to be like that again. So it's talking back and forth with them designing, sending it back, the board approving, then us sending it back to them with our recommendations, changes, all of that. But if we are going to upgrade with Civic Plus, we are okay. If we choose not to and we wait, we have a deadline of about November this year because they are terminating Drupal 7. They are terminating the platform that our website is on. And we have to move up to Central Starter or go with another service. The determination I need from the board tonight is what direction would you like to go? This way I can get an official approval or an official quote from Civic Plus on what we would be expected to pay yearly and throughout this first build. There are two things that I recommend. We talked about last year about the ADA compliancy software that was going to be taken place and required in 2027. If we upgrade with Civic Plus now and we purchase or opt in for the Audio Eye, they will give it to us this year up until our renewal date. So the time we approve it and till our renewal date, they will give us Audio Eye. They will put it on our website and it can be used. And then we start paying once the renewal date comes into place. There's another license, it's called Common Look, in congruence with the ADA compliancy. our PDFs that are on the website have to be made compliant as well, which means screen readers have to read it. I haven't been able to do enough research on it yet, but the Adobe doesn't do website or like online screen reader capabilities. It was something that has to be a separate license that have to be purchased in order to do it. And that would be going through all of our current PDFs that are on the website and then ones that will be up and coming. We don't have to do that yet. It can be an added service later. The minimum we'd have to do is the premium website right now. And then Audio Eye if you choose to do so. So I did do a couple price points for you guys to get a quick look at to see where we'd be at with certain additions and or just the basics that we'd need right now. So you can make your call from there, I guess.
Well, thank you for all this, Natalie. So, I know you and Billy met on this kind of during their presentation and then putting this stuff together. I like to table it in the sense that we've got a new addition to our board that would be very, very beneficial to work with and support with me having a website and then be able to sit down with Natalie and go through more of those details of what she laid out and be able to get us in a direction. We can come back with a recommendation.
I build ADA compliance websites as my job. The price seems very high. Is this all from the same company?
Yes.
Have we ever looked at other companies?
Not since 2020.
Okay.
We used to have GovOffice, who is now, where did I put it? I know I saw it. Catalyst. So they are called Catalyst now. And I know they've done some upgrades to their platform, and especially now with their rebranding and moving up. I think they merged with another company. So we could take a look at them and go back with them. So just like I said, knowing with that, if we do choose, we do have to do a 60-day termination. So anything inside of that, I think they would penalize us for.
I think tabling it is good. There's probably a lot here that there's probably some nuance here that I'm not familiar with. And so I'd like to probably do it outside of the meeting, but
Yeah, I think that'd be great.
Are you thinking of tabling this till the 13th?
Probably, well, giving him some time to digest all this meeting. I don't want to bury. Well, we'll get with Natalie. We'll table it till the second one in May. That gives us all calendar time. So we will do it on the 27th.
Perfect. All right.
And just so you are aware, because I did ask him, I said, what happens in November if we haven't even decided to start this build? And he says, as long as we have started relatively soon, I mean, July is probably, again, pushing it because the whole platform, our website would stop, I guess. He wasn't too clear on that. But as long as we are making headway and we're in the design process, I think we're still good until November, December timeline.
Okay.
So.
Beautiful. This is really good information. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, so we are tabling that one till the second meeting in May. All right, town attorney options. So this one, as we announced at the last meeting, we're parting ways with our town attorney at the end of this month. And I think a few of us have kind of put some feelers out on possible options. But if we don't make a decision tonight, which isn't the end of the world, we have 3 weeks from tonight before we'll be meeting again to select an attorney. So does the board have any information on attorneys, quotes, those kind of things? Do we want to, are we okay waiting 3 weeks? What would the board like to do? I mean, in that period of time, just keep in mind, during that period of time between April 30th and our next board meeting, we can still utilize the MAT attorneys. So it's not like we don't have any legal, course to follow. It's just that, they're not always the quickest to get a hold of and respond. So I mean, that's what we're gonna deal with. And they're also gonna talk to us more generic, not specific about the township. They don't have that history. Miss Billy.
Brad Johnson, the Anoka County attorney, did call me last week also, and he did say that he could be used as a reference as well.
Wonderful. Good.
But there are certain things that he and his office were able to do.
Okay. So what would board like to do? Do we want to wait and get more quotes? Get some solid quotes and bring it back at the next meeting?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, so let's table this one, Billy, then until the next meeting. All right, 13.6 temporary staffing discussion. I put this one on there as well. The reason why is if anybody's looked in the office lately, it's pretty quiet in there. So what I would like to do is make sure that we don't overexert our existing staff. There's still a lot of stuff that's got to be done, so I wanted to open up this discussion. What I would like to do tonight is give the office supervisors and staff the ability to seek out some temp agency services if we need them. If we find that we just need somebody in there to do administrative work, that we get them in there. I don't want to come back in 3 weeks and have our staff overwhelmed, and so I want to throw that out to the board. Thoughts on that? I know we've got I think there was 1 or 2 people that offered to help, but it's not full time. It's just when they have time. And I didn't do any research on what temp agencies cost. I don't know what an average admin person would cost getting them in here. But I'm not sure that matters if work needs to be done. I think work needs to be done. And we also should be way under budget on our labor. Because as we've talked many, many times over the last months here, we've had 3 positions that have been open for probably close to a half a year. Thoughts?
I think that we should, can we table this until the next meeting? And then that way we can check out the prices of one and see, just before we make any, but I think that is a good idea that we do look at a temp agency.
What kind of work are we talking about?
Just general office work. I mean, we're down 1.5 people right now in there and have been now for coming up on 2 weeks. So that's, if you go back and you look, everybody's admitted the office staff did a ton of work. I mean, and there was overtime that was put in because there was an excessive amount of work. Now we went from 3.5 people in the office down to 2 people in the office. And I think it's just maybe unrealistic to leave them hanging out there without the possibility of getting some support if they need it.
Do we have any kind of a job description? Any kind?
I'd say the closest would be Pam Meddy's maybe, because that was defined as an office assistant. That'd be the more generic one.
And that really is the type of work that I'm personally looking for, is administrative assistant kind of work. Somebody to do some of the support stuff, answer the phones, answer the walk-ins.
Mhm.
So do we have her job description on file? So do we get that on posting as soon as possible?
Do we want to post for it or do we want to get some temp help in here?
Do both?
I would do temp, and then we can kind of figure out, once the finance company is up to speed, I think then we kind of need to reevaluate what we need, because we've used to have, we had a need for more treasury hours than we may going forward, depending on whether this is short-term or long-term with a contract. So I wouldn't want to start hiring full-time people and then find that we didn't define the roles right.
It's an office assistant.
Oh, okay.
Something that we've had posted before that I have record of. So there's a few others that I have in there too that I can go through. If you aren't able to find anything, I have stuff that I've posted, so.
Yeah. Get with
Okay.
Thoughts, Sandy?
Yeah.
Bob, that's your area.
So in discussions with Billy, that was kind of the direction we're at. I've, and being able to go through a cycle here with Abdo because they've been phenomenal to date with the information and work they're doing. So to be able to get that baseline of knowing what and where they're at, but it's truly just answering the phones. Dog licenses take 45 minutes. So we gotta fix and address that kind of stuff.
Is she gonna send you that?
She-
Job description?
she's gonna send that out.
So send that to me too.
Yeah.
Is it something that the board wants to give us permission to, if we agree with it, go with it and get it out there right away?
Yes. Yes, that's why I said that.
Okay,
Between,
someone wanna make that motion?
between office staff and Billy, you should be able to figure out what you need. So
Okay.
I'll make a motion.
Good.
So I'll make a motion to permit supervisors, Millerburn supervisors, Ludkey, working with our clerk to determine the temp staffing needs of the office and move forward with hiring as they see fit. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion passes.
Very
Yeah,
much.
yeah. Thank you, Billy, too, and for Susan for all the time that you guys have been working. All right, weed spraying. This one I thought was interesting because I didn't see that we ever did an RFP for it. And I was like, if we don't have somebody spraying the weeds like a week ago, because we do the pre-emergent stuff, we might as well not have it done this year. So I talked to what happened last year, just so you got a little background, is I looked through the meeting minutes. Parks had asked to have the weeds sprayed. The bid was through Shermick Farms for $5,800. I think it was 3 treatments. Do you remember, Bob? I think it was 3 treatments throughout the year. I did talk to Shermick Farms today. He said that the cost of the materials did not go up, so he would be willing to do it for the same price as he did last year, which was $5,800. So, so that we don't get behind on this and end up with a bigger weed problem, what I'm gonna do is I'm making a motion that we hire Shermick Farms to do our annual weed spraying at the cost of $5,800. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion?
What kind of weed spray is this?
It's a combination of, I don't think they use granular, because of kids and stuff. It's a spray that they use, but I don't know. It's supposed to be, do you remember, Bob?
It isn't good for sandburrs, if that's what you're asking. Because you
Yeah.
can't find that chemical anymore.
Well, I just hate it when you go down and they spray a lot of stuff that won't even grow tall underneath the power lines and what does it do to?
We're not killing anything.
This is just
I
our
guess you want
grass.
to kill weeds, but
It's for the grassy areas in the parks, but it's not poisonous to like kids that might be out there playing. That was something that we were very cautious of. So I can get the information to Billy if you guys want, and she can email it out to the board so you know specifically what the chemicals are.
Yeah, I'd like to know. I got kids.
Yep.
And I was thinking that the bees and all that too.
I'll get that to Billy and she can get that out to the board. All right, motions on the table. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, motion passes.
Did everybody vote?
I'm sorry, I missed what the motion was.
The motion was to move forward with hiring Shermick Farms to do our 2025 weed spraying at a cost of $5,800.
Got it. Nay.
Nay.
Okay, motion passes 3-2. You gotta speak up louder. I'm gonna make everybody start shouting out their motions then.
You're pretty quick. so-
I give like half a second. All right, clerk updates.
Make this quick. Just wanted to let you guys know that working with Abdo over the last week has been really great. They seem to be on top of everything. We're gonna do our first direct deposit ACH tomorrow, so pray for me. The check run went well. We figured out a system for the invoices, where to put them and how they're gonna process them through, and then how to do the check stuff. We still gotta figure out kind of the cash drawer depositing kind of thing. We have a tentative plan as far as scanning invoices or receipts and then doing a deposit, the deposit slip and all of that kind of stuff. But they have been very, very helpful. It's taken a lot off of what could have been a very, very heavy plate for me.
It's great.
So the second thing is data request. I'm still being inundated with those, and I will admit that they are a little bit behind. I get so many in a day that sometimes I don't have the resources or the time to pull the data. So they are on a little bit of they're longer than they probably would like to be. So I just wanted people to be aware of that.
Are you explaining that to the people when they ask it?
Yes.
Good.
Yes.
Good.
There are a couple different data requests that are coming in that are repeats. So I have those ready and available for when the next one comes in. So those are going quick, but it's the ones like, I want all the information on Martin Lake Drive or things that have a lot of data associated with it. So those are taking a little bit longer. And technically what we have is a reasonable amount of time depending on the request. So if the request is asking for a lot of data, it takes longer to get. And that is explained as well, that I'm not held exactly to 10 days. It's a reasonable amount of time to be able to pull the data.
Well, and correct me if I'm wrong, but if I understand it, you have to respond within 10 days, but if it's a large request.
Yes.
I mean, I know of some data requests that have taken months before they get filled, but they
Yes.
have to have so just as long as the people understand that.
And there have been several where I had to consult the attorney, and that takes additional time sometimes.
Sure.
So I just wanted everybody to be aware that if you hear complaints about data requests, there is a legitimate reason why that they're behind.
Super.
Because I'm trying to fulfill lots of duties at once, and those seem to be the lowest priority right now.
Yeah.
So
Great, thank you.
the ARPA report, that will begin to be looked at first thing, probably towards the end of the week or next week. Abdo has a person that they have connected me with that has worked with many cities on their report. So I have an excellent resource in how to get that report completed by the 30th, which is the deadline. I know that there was some concern on the board about making sure that it got done because some of that funds is designated for the fire truck.
Yeah.
So very important to get it done, and it will. It's just not happening this week.
Okay.
And then office updates, I think we kind of just covered that I've been talking about needs and administrative support is really where it's most important right now. Because Susan and I have such specific duties that when the phones are ringing off the hook and we're getting 15, 20 people at the window, and a lot of it is fellowship. People want to chat and they want to, which is great.
Yeah.
It's wonderful. That's how I get to know people here. But it does take time. So having somebody available to kind of manage that would be excellent. So I appreciate the vote and I appreciate the ability to move forward. So, and that's all I have.
Billy, you're doing wonderful. Couldn't be happier myself by
Thank you.
interactions. I still don't know how it is that every time I call the office, somebody always answers and usually really quick. So hats off to both you and Susan for all you're doing in the office. It's amazing. So
Susan has been wonderful. She has picked up the phones and the front desk as often as she possibly can. And she's got a very technical job. So when she gets interrupted, it throws things off. And it's just, we've been working in tandem really well. And Sarah actually has been helping a lot. She came over when Susan was gone on Monday and was like, I'm here. I can answer the phones. I can do the front desk and even
That's
just keep me
awesome.
company for a couple minutes because it got really lonely in there without Susan on Monday.
If you guys run into a situation like that again, where you need somebody to help out just for a day, I'm available.
Really, thank you. That would be wonderful.
Yeah.
Andy has spent entire days with me in the office and I feel so bad because he gets one day off and he spends it working with me. And he's got all the lion's share of the work, like calling the computer company and making sure that I got access to things and fighting with them when I don't have access with things and figuring out deposits. And it's just, that support is very much appreciated.
Perfect.
So thank you and thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, thank you, Billy. All right, 15. Anybody left that wants to do public forum? Thank you. Almost everybody's left. All right. Upcoming meetings. So we got the Martin Lakers coming up, May 15th, Parks Board Tour on Monday, April 28th at 5 p.m. And I think that notice said that there may be a quorum of the board, right? I think.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. School Forest meeting on May 5th at 5. And the Limited Family Fun Day meeting on May 5th at 6:30. And then our next regular, thank you for putting this on there. Our next regular board meeting is 3 weeks out, not 2 weeks, 3 weeks. With the way it lays out on the calendar. So the next meeting will be on May 13th. All right, is there anything else to come before the board tonight?
I make a motion to adjourn.
I second that.
All right, motion's been made and seconded. And before we do that, I just want to officially welcome Sam again.
Yes.
Thanks.
Thank you for sitting. This was a very long meeting. They're not usually like this.
Oh, I
but-
thought we were getting out early.
All right, all in favor of said motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, that motion passes. Thank you, everyone. We are adjourned at 9:03.
I said.